What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another video on the channel. Today we are covering what if Evil OC is reborn as Neji Hyuga. Joins OROCHIMARU. Part 5. With that out of the way, ladies and gents, just leave a like if you enjoyed the video, seeing as it'll help me out a ton and make my day. But with no further ado, enjoy. On that same day, in front of Konoha's main hospital, a strange person came out of a spatial vortex. I wasn't here in so many years already, huh? He could teleport himself to any location in the world he had previously seen once in his life. Obito Uchiha was also in Konoha more than 15 years ago when he unleashed the Nine Tails attack onto this village. At that time, he did that to effectively cut out all the ties between himself and this village, and even the world as a whole. He still remembered how his Minato-sensei failed to recognize him at that time. He didn't manage to redeem himself after he previously always failed to arrive on time to save his students. To save Rin, it's time to recover my other eye back. Obito already knew what his other eye ability was thanks to Zetsu, who had his clones secretly enter Konoha's sensing barrier after it noticed the commotion happening inside. Usually, they were sneaking underground near the village just for spying on situations like this one. Hence, Zetsu witnessed when Kakashi employed that ability there earlier. Obito currently had an eye with the Kamui ability that could teleport only himself or the people he touched inside of that pocket dimension. Whereas, the eye he gifted Kakashi back then could teleport anyone or anything inside of that dimension, from a long range, not just from a touching range like him, albeit with greater difficulty. It wasn't one-shot kill as his own previous close-range Kamui ability. However, using both of them in combination, one as a diversion, while the other as the main attack was perfect. Not to mention the other benefits like more soul energy or Susanoo. Obito promptly entered the building, presently moving so fast that no one of the personnel could notice him. He was checking for and going straight for Kakashi's room. He already knew that he collapsed right after using it. After all, he was not even an Uchiha, and even for them, it was dangerous to use. That ability could only bring him more harm than good. Kakashi, I let you play with my eye long enough, but now is not the time for playing anymore. Obito looked down on him. He doesn't know why he waited until now. Maybe it was because of his pride that he didn't take it. After all, it was the gift of Obito Uchiha. But now that even their plan was in jeopardy, Obito didn't even need Black Zetsu to remind him. He understood best what his essential priorities were. After that powerful person invaded Konoha earlier, Obito clearly understood that the situation around the world was getting more difficult and unpredictable. Not to mention, that same individual previously used to look around secretly for information regarding their organization. Zetsu's clones found that out and informed him of that as well. That person is very dangerous, found it. Obito soon found Kakashi's room on the top floor. Then he opened the door casually. He immediately noticed that familiar silver-haired person lying in bed, so defenseless. Give me back my eye. However, before he took the next crucial step, he suddenly noticed something beside him. That's a shadow clone on the bed, and then he used a transformation jutsu to turn himself into this face. Obito thought as Kakashi, who held a kunai, passed right through him. He was caught off guard because he thought that Kakashi was in a coma after using his left eye's Mangekyou ability. Kakashi looked flabbergasted as his carefully thought-out attack passed right through this unknown person. In fact, he was woken up from his coma because of that unknown smell appearing suddenly inside his room. He accomplished that level of sense over many years as a shinobi. Moreover, his mother was from the Inizuka clan, which had a genetically superior sense of smell to other humans. Kakashi was already weakened from using his Kamui beforehand. Therefore, as soon as he passed through Obito, Obito materialized himself again and took him by his neck viciously. Who are you? Kakashi could only weakly mutter with veins popping all over his neck. Obito immediately changed his voice into a hoarse one and replied, "You weakling doesn't deserve to know, not give me your Sharingan." Kakashi shouted as Obito directly took his left eye out of his eye socket. Obito then threw Kakashi at the other side of the room. "You don't even deserve to be killed by me. I don't want to dirty my hands." Obito spoke as his presence was vanishing in a spatial vortex. Kakashi could only stay glued to the wall and silent at those words, as he passed out once again due to physical and mental shock. After all, that Sharingan accompanied him for nearly decades already. Obito suddenly appeared outside the Konoha. Complete Zetsu was already waiting for him there. He nodded toward it and then slowly removed his mask and put his reclaimed eye into his empty eye socket. And as soon as he did that, he felt a rush of power slowly filling his head and entire body. He felt extremely powerful, like he could conquer the whole world. Yes, this is it, hahaha. I feel like now in the top bracket of the so-called 6 paths level, Neji Hyuga mentioned back then. Him, that otherworldly looking person, Nagato, no one is my opponent anymore. Obito marveled at his new power. With this, the Eye of the Moon plan is sure to get completed without a mistake. Black Setsu looked at him strangely and snickered inwardly. Thankfully, this fool doesn't know about that Junjutsu placed on his heart, or else he would have probably got out of my and Madara's control after this. However, he sure is powerful now. By my estimates, he's on the same level as Madara and Hashirama were while they were alive. He now has the complete trickiest space-time ability in the world, as well as Hashirama's cells. Black Setsu analyzed in an instant. Nagato can't last a few minutes against me now. But still, I will wear the same mask and keep this a secret. Obito finally felt unexplainably complete after many years in terms of power and Jujutsu. What happened to Kakashi? White Setsu asked curiously. He still remembers how connected Obito was to Rin and Kakashi at that time when Madara saved him. Obito turned and looked at him dismissively, as if he somehow asked a dumb question. That loser, I didn't want to dirty my hands on him. I left him to live without that eye and humiliation in the future. He's miles below me in both power and mind for me to personally end him. You say that, but I think that you still have some kinds of good feelings for him. Obito, White Setsu thought, feeling amused. He knew him best. 10 days passed by since Kakashi got his left Sharingan eye, a memento from his best friend, unexplainably stolen. He only moved from his hospital bed earlier today. Currently, he was inside the Konoha's graveyard visiting Rin and Obito's graves respectfully. He disappointed them once again. He was powerless against that mysterious powerhouse who stole Obito's eye from him. And the only reason why he lived on was that the opponent didn't want to dirty his hands on him. Kakashi looked at Rin's grave now and wondered when did he become so hopeless. He thought that he could finally protect his closest people in Konoha, after realizing that new ability of his Sharingan. However, now it wasn't the case anymore. It got stolen the first time he used it in battle. It wasn't always like that. Once upon a time he was Konoha's most talented genius in history, but now he felt like he wasn't even qualified to participate in a battle against the likes of Neji Hyuga, that person with white hair, that person who stole his Mangekyo Sharingan, in the Akatsuki cloak, against their whole organization. Kakashi clenched his fists, wondering how could he protect Konoha and his team in the future, and how to bring Sasuke back. He can't go on like this forever. During his early years, he subsequently lost his father, his best friend, his love interest, his teacher, and his teacher's wife. He joined the Anbu out of pain. However, he never gave up on protecting Konoha or turned in the wrong direction. He forgave Konoha for spreading all of those rumors against his father. He even vowed to protect them just like Minato-sensei and Obito also always wanted to. However, after all of that happened, it was understandable that he somehow lost a little bit of motivation to develop. That's why he stagnated, being only on the Jonin level, for decades. But that changed recently. He finally got a team, his students, and he remembered Obito's words about protecting his teammates. He wanted to make Naruto and Sakura happy and bring Sasuke back. That's why he developed and realized that he had the potential for that Mangekyo Sharingan ability. He didn't want to fall back behind them too much, having seen their potential. And even if that ability got taken away from him now, he didn't give up. After 3 days of contemplation and after conversations with Sakura and Tsunade, he decided to not give up and develop himself in another way. Father, it's time that I pick up your sword again. Kakashi thought and disappeared. Inside the Hada clan residence, a few minutes later, Kakashi looked at a distinctive sword carefully. He held it again today after many years. It was his family's heirloom called the White Light Chakra Saber. It was a straight-bladed tanto with a small, circular handguard. It gave off a white streak of chakra when it was swung, thus earning Tsukumo Haddock his famous title of Konoha's White Fang. It was a very valuable weapon constructed of the finest materials from the Land of Iron. It was perfect for their clan's Kenjutsu style. Kakashi was currently the only living member of that clan, so the weapon became his. It was usually attached to someone's back for the quickest response time. All those materials create something called the chakra metal, is one which perfectly conducts the chakra without losing any in transmission or damaging the metal itself. While this would not be wasted on standard sets of kunai and shuriken, it is typically used for more customized weapons meant for long-lasting use, such as katanas used by swordsmen or this white light chakra saber. Chakra metal is also able to absorb and hold an individual's chakra nature when it is channeled into them. Tsukumo Haddock was famous for his white-looking lighting chakra motions and waves. Even after the wielder stops focusing its chakra on it, the metal will stay charged as the energy slowly dissipates over time. The Hada clan was a special clan honing in on Kenjutsu, so it was one-of-a-kind clan in Konoha. They were famous for their swordsmanship ever since the Shinobi Warring States period, or even before that, during the Samurai Age. There was even a legend that they immigrated into the Land of Fire a long time ago from the Land of Iron, the only remaining samurai heaven in the world now. The essence of the Hada clan's Kenjutsu was developed to allow for a single person to defeat numerous foes single-handedly. The two main principles of this style are slashing efficiently and effectively, with a minimum amount of energy being expended at the maximum speed possible, while striking opponents' weak spots. eliminating an enemy fast then moving on to the next one. This technique can be greatly enhanced by using chakra, whether through the use of chakra flow in your sword, or by enhancing your movement speed by sticking it onto the soles of your feet. High-level practitioners of this technique are able to kill the enemy shinobi, even before giving them the chance to finish their seals and perform ninjutsu. There are even those who could expel that chakra outward in a form of a white light chakra wave. Such a master was the legendary Tsukumo Haddock. Kakashi could do that during the Third Great Ninja War as well, albeit not on the scale of his father. After a while, Kakashi arrived at Tsunade's office. Tsunade, Sakura, and Shizune were already there. Sakura was now Tsunade's disciple in medical ninjutsu. She was already taught basic techniques such as the mystical palm technique. Sakura was also taught Tsunade's most prided battle technique, her P-chakra enhancement, alongside medical ninjutsu combined physical strength. Using her perfect chakra control and medical knowledge of the human body, Tsunade learned to collect chakra in each and every cell of her fist in an instant to maximize the impact of her punch. And by collecting chakra to the absolute limit of each cell, she could unleash an outrageous level of destructive force with the smallest effort. Being so louder to vitalize her muscles to the point that they could unleash the greatest amount of force, without damaging them at all, while using exactly the amount of chakra she needs for exactly the amount of time she needs to deliver the blow. Anyone else who attempted such a feat would be more likely to hurt themselves than achieve anything close to her strength. Naturally, this technique evolved over time through practice and experience, as she learned to collect chakra like this not only in her hands, but in any part of her body. Knowing exactly how the body worked, she could apply chakra to every muscle used for punching or kicking with perfect timing to increase her damage output. She could even do the same for more complicated actions, such as lifting giant objects and wielding them as weapons. This allowed her to release her inhuman strength with any kind of physical blows she launched, as well as perform feats of great strength, such as lifting giant objects and wielding them as a weapon. Just as shinobi learned to focus their chakra on their limbs instinctively, Tsunade did the same with her own version of enhancement, until every blow had the potential to deliver incredible destruction. Yet she was perfectly capable of restraining herself to avoid causing unnecessary harm as well, which, in many ways, made her seem even more dangerous to her enemies. Finally, her extensive knowledge of the human body and mastery of medical ninjutsu allowed her to enhance the development of her musculature through specialized training. She continually pushed her muscles through a cycle of destruction and rebirth to build their strength, while carefully optimizing them for their purpose, essentially remodeling herself into the incarnation of physical strength. Tsunade passed all of that knowledge to Sakura already, who perfectly grasped it before. And that was not even everything that Tsunade had at her disposal. She also had the strength of 100 seal, and the accompanying techniques, although she didn't teach the rest to Sakura yet. Sakura was more talented than her other disciple Shizune, who didn't even manage to grasp her basic chakra enchantment, and instead had to rely on her personal chakra conversion jutsu called the Poison Mist. There are some ninjutsu that involve converting chakra into another substance that do not fall under the 7 nature transformations. Shizune's Poison Mist converts her chakra into special chemical substances within her body which she expels through her mouth, and, when they are exposed to the air, transform into a deadly poisonous gas. Jiraiya's toe oil bullet converts chakra into oil and expels it all at once as a huge mass. What makes these jutsu different from most is that they require more knowledge than just the necessary hand seals. The Poison Mist is a jutsu that combines ninjutsu, chemistry, and medical knowledge, since the caster requires a certain level of understanding for those subjects to be able to effectively convert her chakra into the correct substances. Similarly, the toe oil bullet uses Jiraiya's knowledge of toads and the oil that they naturally produce from their bodies, as well as use for their jutsu, to replicate that substance with his chakra. The difference between this and nature transformation is that nature transforms creates different types of chakra, whilst this chakra conversion causes the chakra to adopt the properties of another substance. It is chakra disguised as something else instead of another kind of chakra altogether. In theory, as long as one understands a substance to a certain degree, one could potentially develop ninjutsu that creates said substance. Chakra conversion has also been used with elemental ninjutsu as well, as Suma Sarutobi's personal fire release. Ash pile burning converts fire chakra into explosive powder. Instead of fiery burning chakra, it becomes a type of matter with the potential to burn. The moment the powder is ignited by a spark or flame, it generates a fiery explosion. While the fire release, hiding in ash and dust, converts fire chakra into hot ash. So it takes the form of matter with an incredibly high temperature that burns with heat instead of flames. Konoha has special Jonin Izumo Kamizuki's water release. Starch syrup capturing field is a lesser example of chakra conversion, since it doesn't actually create a different substance, but it does slightly alter the water's composition to make it viscous. Kakashi-sensei, are you alright? Sakura quickly rushed over to Kakashi, after he passed through the long hallways to enter Tsunade's office. Kakashi smiled and responded gently to her, I'm good, Sakura. I came to talk to Lady Tsunade regarding her offer. I agree that she tries to cultivate a new eye for me through the cells of my other eye. He knew that he couldn't focus on Kenjutsu with only one eye next. He planned to start practicing and reacquainting himself with his father's saber and Kenjutsu style even before that. However, to truly reach high in the future, he needs that eye. Tsunade was one of the greatest experts on cellular research in the whole world, and as soon as Kakashi woke up, she recommended to him that she creates him a new eye. After all, she knows how much weaker a shinobi would be without one eye, and they still need Kakashi, even though he lost his Sharingan. He was still an important jonin and a member of the village. Sakura and Tsunade immediately let out an internal sigh of relief after hearing him and realizing that he still didn't give up on his shinobi duties or life, even after experiencing such a shock. They were concerned for him. That's great to hear, Kakashi. Also, it is a very good choice you picked that weapon of your late father once again. Tsunade smiled and glanced at the smart sword that was now on Kakashi's back. It brought back memories. Sakura looked curious, but Tsunade continued, "You will learn about that later, Sakura. Kakashi, it will take some time for that eye to be cultivated out of cells, maybe even months in time. Therefore, I will give you an exemption for all missions until then. You should get familiar with that sword once again in the meanwhile. I'm sure you realize just how much trouble this village is facing, both internally and externally." Tsunade suddenly made a serious face. Kakashi already told her that the masked man who attacked him wore that black coat with clouds on it. Danzo also recently made some small moves. Not to mention, the situation with the Hyuga clan. There was recently always some kind of shocking commotion happening among them. However, all of a sudden, they heard some kind of loud commotion outside the office in the hallway. Tsunade suddenly smiled joyfully. They are finally back. With them here, I feel much safer. Sakura already rushed out while Kakashi also smiled and spoke. After seeing Sakura leaving, "Don't worry, Lady Tsunade, I have another idea for a new jutsu. I will get stronger and protect this village." Kakashi felt like he wasn't this motivated for a very long time. Chakra nature intensification, huh? Naruto and Jiraiya were called earlier from their trip due to that strange invader with white hair who attacked the village, and Kakashi who also lost his eye. However, even without that, Jiraiya would have come earlier than planned after hearing all of that information from the Great Toad Sage. Jiraiya and Naruto soon entered the room, and Naruto immediately rushed toward Kakashi in quick steps worriedly. "Kakashi-sensei, are you okay?" He ran back toward Konoha at the fastest speed in his life after he heard what happened to Kakashi from Jiraiya. He was now much taller and more handsome looking and muscular than the last time he was in Konoha. He was older than 15 years already now, and he completely changed his clothes, removing his previous stupid-looking and flashy jumpsuit, showcasing his change of temperament during the last few years, the best. Naruto promptly inspected Kakashi but found nothing wrong. It was just that he appeared a little different than usual in some inexplicable way. Kakashi just smiled at him while rubbing him by the hair. "You've grown up so much, Naruto. Perfect timing, just for my special training." Jiraiya, who came inside the room, in his usual attire, after Naruto, nodded toward Tsunade and then looked at Kakashi, also noticing his new differences mainly in temperament and aura. He was just like an unleashed sword ready to strike. Jiraiya smiled and also patted Kakashi a little on his shoulder fast. Naruto and Sakura also greeted each other in their usual funny way, in front of Kakashi, before Naruto asked him curiously, "Special training?" Naruto was now also much more serious and intelligent due to all that happened, and Jiraiya's previous honing, so he quickly composed himself from his previous interaction with Sakura. "Yes, Naruto, I've decided, we're going to train together for a while. Only with this method that I envision could we bring back Sasuke and defend ourselves against the Akatsuki." Kakashi also looked at Jiraiya and Tsunade at this time. Jiraiya immediately understood the method. He opened his eyes wide and nodded in approval, but he also facepumped himself hard for everyone inside the room to see. "Yes, how did I forget about that? Good job, Kakashi." Had Naruto trained in that method during their time together, he would have been much better. "I'm really not a good teacher." Jiraiya then turned a bit disheartened suddenly. "Don't beat yourself, Master Jiraiya. After all, even I don't know if the method will be successful. We have to test it out first. And it took me so long to think of that too. Only during the last few days did I get the idea." Kakashi explained patiently before looking at Tsunade resolutely. "Lady Tsunade, please allow Naruto some free time from his missions as well. I will try to teach Naruto a new jutsu with an S-class potential." Kakashi also got another idea beforehand to try and see if Naruto could break forth Hokage's Rasengan's potential, by fusing it with nature transformation of some sort as well. He believed that only Naruto, that man's own son, could break his limits and take the jutsu further, but we first have to test Naruto's chakra natures, if they weren't already tested by Master Jiraiya. Kakashi planned to waste no time in regards to training his student Naruto and himself. "Well, since you're so eager, Kakashi, you can go right away immediately. I don't remember even seeing you this fired up." Tsunade smiled, all of a sudden, and generously allowed their training, while Jiraiya also nodded. He knew Kakashi way more extensively and personally than Tsunade, because he was his grand student in a sense, but he never saw him this motivated in nearly decades. Maybe losing this eye wasn't so bad for him, Jiraiya immediately thought. After Kakashi got that eye from his teammate, he stopped being creative, like he used to be, and relied only on copying other people's abilities with his Sharingan. But how far could he reach with just copying? Sakura, you three are still a team even now, so you're also free from your missions. You should train how I taught you, and help them during their training. Try giving them those special chakra food pills you created recently. Tsunade looked toward Sakura next, who was also in a room. They had a poison and chemical research center in Konoha, and Sakura was recently an often seen guest there. Sakura immediately agreed, glad that she could help them in any way. She was also good in that area. She even developed some of her own personal, special military ratio pills with great effects. Ah yes, I need one more thing, Lady Tsunade. We're going to need Yamato to keep the Nine Tails in check. Kakashi suddenly remembered and spoke to her. Jiraiya also inwardly agreed, and his face turned serious after remembering all of the problems they had with the Fox Demon during their training. He unknowingly glanced at his chest, where a large scar now stood because of his own carelessness. The majority of their training was spent on trying to tame that beast a little for the future. And they succeeded in a sense but also failed, hence why he agreed for Yamato to be there. Tsunade immediately responded positively and called for the Anbus stationed outside the office to appear. She whispered something to him, and then he obviously went on to call Yamato as well. Kakashi and Naruto were one of the most important people in the village, and for her faction inside of the said village. She needed to do everything in her power for them to succeed and really get stronger. She saw the difficulties that lay ahead, both from the inside and outside, for their village. And shortly after, following her orders, Yamato, who removed his usual Anbu uniform, arrived at the scene and reported. Then after a while, Naruto, Sakura, Kakashi, and Yamato went to a training field outside the Konoha, where a giant waterfall lay. Tsunade also motioned for Shizune to leave the room as well, and leave her alone with Jiraiya. Jiraiya and Tsunade then remained alone and looked at each other in silence. They knew each other for decades and were quite emotionally connected. Jiraiya broke the weird silence, after sighing internally, and spoke first, in a warm kind of manner. I went to Mount Maiboku. The prophecy was changed. Naruto is not the child of destiny anyone. Neji Hyuga is the new one, in the words of the giant toad sage. What should we do? He said that Neji could either save this world in the future or destroy it completely. Jiraiya started speaking about the Tensogun, Hyuga heritage, and Hamura Otsutsuki, while Tsunade had eyes wide open. After 10 minutes of only Jiraiya speaking, Tsunade finally opened her mouth while massaging her head a bit from all the information she received just now. Jiraiya, to be honest with you, I'm still not sure if I believe in all of this. Even if that being is very exalted, and lived for so long. As a cage of this village, Neji is still our enemy and rebellious ninja, despite him being the potential savior of this world or not being the one. And we need to act accordingly, you as well. Unlike Jiraiya, who was always obsessed with those kinds of weird prophecies, she was very rational regarding this matter. However, I have to thank you. If this information regarding his unseen Dijutsu or his heritage turns out to be true, then at least you solved for us some huge mysteries. Tsunade also deemed the rest of Jiraiya's information very valuable. If those were correct, then they were the most knowledgeable great village on those newfound problems and mysteries in the ninja world regarding Neji and the Hyuga clan. Jiraiya wanted to say something, but he turned silent. He understood Tsunade's words. Outside the Konoha village, directly in front of a giant waterfall, on some man-made wooden pillars, Naruto and his clones trained in his wind-release chakra nature transformation by training to cut that water. Yamato was above him, on the ground, performing his special tailed beast suppression jutsu from the first Hokage. Kakashi was in the nearby forest. Sakura brought some food and chakra pills, from time to time, while Tsunade and Jiraiya occasionally spectated and checked on their progress. Kakashi already explained to them all his newfound and proven successful method of shinobi training with shadow clones. Naruto looked like he discovered fire, while others marveled at Kakashi's ingenuity. This method could help anyone, but in fact, it could best be employed by Naruto, because of the sheer number of shadow clones that only he could make due to his chakra. The idea was that the experience of a shadow clone practicing the skill or technique could be the equivalent of Naruto performing the training himself, when said experience is deposited into his memory bank. Therefore, training with one shadow clone would allow Naruto to gain twice the experience for whatever he was learning. The more shadow clones he trained with, then the more experience he would gain in the same amount of time. It was a perfect skill to use in their current urgent situation. Naruto's current max limit they all found was to create 168 shadow clones, to practice for an hour, amounting to exactly 7 days worth of non-stop training. Most ninja who learned the Jonin level shadow clone technique would be a lot older and more developed in skill than Naruto, would struggle to use it for training for a worthwhile amount of time, and would take longer to recover their stamina afterward. Only Naruto had the perfect combination of his young age, massive chakra levels, and enhanced recovery speed to make this the perfect training method. Naruto was currently learning the chakra nature transformation, and it was best to learn one at a time, rather than trying to learn them all simultaneously due to the focus required. Naruto discovered that his affinity was wind, so he trained it first after Kakashi tested him with that chakra test paper. Each chakra nature has the same first level of training where they try to affect a leaf by making it split in two with wind, soak it with water, crumble it away with earth, wrinkle it with lightning, and burn it with lightning. The second level is more varied with splitting a waterfall with wind, filling a pool with water, breaking a boulder with earth, creating a ball with lightning, and burning a tree with fire. Naruto was currently obviously doing the waterfall method needed for now. However, strangely, Tsunade's and Jiraiya's attention this time wasn't on Naruto, but on Kakashi, who could train only with a few shadow clones. They were shocked by the speed at which he became familiar with his father's Haddock swordsmanship once again after so many years. They looked from above as dozens of white light flashes cut down the trees, and transformed that force. It's as I thought. Tsunade, Kakashi is a natural prodigy at Kinjutsu. Maybe, this road will yield him greater results in the future. Jiraiya looked at this emotionally and sighed, remembering his old friend, Tsukumo Haddock. He could see his shadow on Kakashi now, so many years passed already. Tsunade also sighed, noticing Jiraiya's remembrance of the legendary White Fang, while Jiraiya continued speaking. In fact, there is a good reason for this speed, and it isn't strange to me at all. Through hundreds of years of constant battles using only their swords, the members of the Haddock clan managed to incorporate their Kinjutsu style and experience into their clan's genin. Not to mention their sight, reaction time, and body constitution being superior for learning Kinjutsu as well. It's like a Kekkei Genkai, but made specifically for Kinjutsu. The Haddock clan is truly a special existence. Jiraiya spoke about his theory to Tsunade, who was surprised by his words, but also agreed after remembering Tsukumo and thinking carefully. That's why Tsunade, I think that losing his Sharingan could be a blessing in disguise for him. Jiraiya added confidently. He really cared for Kakashi and wanted the best for him in all aspects of life. Therefore, he really meant what he said. The Sharingan just wasn't made for non-Uchiha people to use, especially not the ones without some kind of monster bloodlines like your Senju clan, or the Uzumaki clan, with a large amount of chakra in them. When a non-Uchiha person transplants the Sharingan into his eye sockets, it has to be activated at all times. It couldn't be turned on and off like in the Uchiha clan's people, thus draining an enormous amount of chakra from them 24 hours a day, every day. You should also remember Tsunade how Kakashi stagnated right after acquiring it during the Third Great Ninja War. Jiraiya spoke to Tsunade, who wasn't really listening, and was still dazed thinking of Tsukumo. Memories kept coming back to her mind. She remembered how Tsukumo used to scold them, in their sparings, even back during their genin periods. His reflexes were so advanced, that his arm holding his unique sword, moved like it had a mind on its own, like an ultimate defense. He probably had the best reflexes in the whole world. If it was genetic or acquired by him later, they never got to find out. Tsukumo was so fast that he in fact managed to kill the Kumo ninja, who was said to have an attack moving at the speed of light during the Second Great Ninja War. Tsunade suddenly thought. It was not the Raikage's family, but another shinobi with pseudo-light release. Jiraiya noticed this and spoke again, still thinking of Tsukumo. Yes, he was really stronger than all of us together during that time, and even today if he was alive, he would still be stronger than any of us three individually. Tsukumo also got his fame and recognition during the Second Great Ninja War. It was just that his status equaled their Sanins combined put together. He used to fight with the cages of other great ninja villages. He prevented Kumo from joining the war against them. He fought against some of their strongest shinobi. He nearly destroyed Suna's puppet division, and many more extraordinary things. Second Great Ninja War was his White Fang's war, not their Sanin's war. The First Great Ninja War was the war for resources, and it was fought between all the Great Five ninja villages, after that system was first introduced. It was a bloody battle royal between them all, and it led to all five of the first cages being assassinated, killed in battle, or died in some other way. The First Shinobi World War ended with an armistice treaty, but also left the five great shinobi countries seriously wounded. The treaty led to a period of peace, but after about 20 years, the economic disparity between the countries had become a serious problem. The nations began to form factions, and under the pretext of expanding fair rights, the countries started using military force to expand their territories. Thus, a world war started. This time it wasn't all versus all clash. The Third Great Ninja War happened because of a decline in national power. The reign of the five great shinobi countries was crumbling. Along their borders, skirmishes with smaller nations broke out all the time. The prolonged conflicts gradually spread their flames far and wide, until at last, they developed into an all-out world war. The conflict turned into an unprecedented war of attrition. It was tragic how he ended up, isn't it? Tsunade suddenly melancholically looked toward Jiraiya. Tsukumo was their biggest target and rival to surpass when they were young. He was a peak of shinobi in everyone's opinion. However, due to an evil conspiracy, he later took his own life prematurely. Danzo instructed some villages to badmouth him after he abandoned missions to save his teammates. Knowing his honorable personality really well, Danzo abused it to the extreme. At that time, Sakuma was the Anbu's commander and Danzo's biggest contender inside the village. There is no use for regret now, Tsunade. No one expected that he would really take his own life at that time, not even our sensei, or else he would have all done something. Sometimes, people are really unpredictable. We could only prevent something like that from happening ever again, and take care of his son in the future, Jiraiya said after looking at Kakashi far in the distance. He was also aware of Danzo's recent small and harmful movements. He decisively looked at Tsunade next and clenched his fists in anger. I will never allow that man to harm you in any way, even if I had to personally kill him. Tsunade looked at him and suddenly felt really safe alongside something else. A few weeks later, inside the forest beside the same previous training grounds outside the Konoha, Kakashi resolutely called and led Tsunade and Jiraiya to show them something. He wanted to prove that even without Sharingan he was a capable shinobi, especially to Tsunade. He wanted to make a point to her that he should be trusted with missions of the same intensity as his previous ones. That he was capable to take on the Akatsuki and protect Naruto as well. He trained nearly day and night to achieve his new purple lighting technique. He was now very confident in his abilities for the first time after a very long time. He was also optimistic about his future strength if things go well. Lady Tsunade, Master Jiraiya, look carefully and tell me what you think of it. I named it the purple lighting. Jiraiya and Tsunade stood side by side and looked carefully at Kakashi's hand held high. It was suddenly filled with electricity and glowed in purple lighting. It also seemed that Kakashi didn't need to take his usual Chidori-style pose. Kakashi suddenly also moved his hand around with ease. Kakashi, your tunnel vision problem with Chidori is solved like this? Jiraiya asked joyfully. He almost couldn't believe that Kakashi managed to learn this in just a few weeks. Tsunade felt similar. Yes, Master Jiraiya, I don't need Sharingan for my Chidori anymore. And this is even stronger than Chidori in power. Moreover, I can mold this in various ways unlike previously. Look. Kakashi suddenly extended a beam of lighting right from his hand to the nearby forest, cutting various trees vertically and horizontally with precision in all directions around himself. The whole area glowed purple in color, and it looked quite overpowering. Well, you certainly couldn't do this previously. Good job, Kakashi. Tsunade smiled happily and extended her fist. She was pleased with this scene. It seemed that Jiraiya was right about him. Jiraiya earlier believed in Kakashi even more than her. They were now both extremely happy about his power development, as Kakashi was an important member of their faction inside the village. He was a disciple of Jiraiya's disciple, Minato Namikaze, who was also a staunch member of their faction. That faction held the worldviews of Hiruzen Sarutobi, firmly opposing Danzo Shimaru's hawkish ones. In fact, Hiruzen Sarutobi created that unofficial faction in the first place. Nowadays the leader was Tsunade Senju, and outside Jiraiya, Kakashi, Asuma, Guy, and other obvious members, they also had the absolute loyalty of the Inoshika 3 clans. It was derived from their ancient connection to the Sarutobi clan, and recent loyalty to Hiruzen himself. They were also very opposed to Danzo, who used to recruit, or better said steal, some of their clan children for his organization. Abiram clan walked closer to Danzo, while Inizuka and Hyuga clan stayed quite neutral. The other two elders of the village were also neutral. The purple lighting is the highest possible state of the lighting release. To master this, one must learn to vibrate their chakra at the highest speed and volume, to create as much lightning chakra as possible in an instant. Purple lightning is born from refining this process to the absolute limit, increasing the frequency and the intensity of the chakra vibrations to the maximum level possible. Kakashi continued introducing various secret information regarding his newly developed ninjutsu. Once it reaches that peak, the chakra transforms even further and turns purple. In this state, the lightning chakra is closer to the true lightning of nature, and overcomes its weakness to the wind chakra. It is so hot, like inside of a lightning clap, falling from the sky. It is capable of leaving flash burns and permanent nerve damage in its victim, rather than temporary paralysis and pain, moving at speed surpassing ordinary lightning release. This is what I coined as chakra nature intensification. It is a power obtained by breaking through your best's nature transformation limit. Kakashi seriously explained to them the process of creating and what that technique was. Tsunade and Jiraiya opened their eyes wide, while Jiraiya thought, it is as I thought. Kakashi created his personal Chidori before he got his Sharingan from his teammate, only then could he use that created technique effectively. However, had it not been for that, I'm sure Kakashi would have created this purple lighting earlier by his natural genius. Inventing is always better than copying. Kakashi's natural creativity, on the level of Minato, is slowly returning back to him now that he lost his Sharingan, or better said he was freed from it. Before he used it because of his teammate and he caged himself with it, and could only rely on copying as it was the best battle style for Sharingan. The Chidori was a one-hit kill ninjutsu that focuses a large quantity of chakra into the user's dominant hand, and then the user charges at the target to deliver high-speed thrust. It requires the user to perform nature transformation to create lightning chakra, and then shape transformation to make it discharge with the range and power they need. It was named after the unique chirping noise that it makes. Kakashi invented it when he was 13 years old, and that was his sole original technique. After Kakashi learned the Rasengan, the pinnacle of shape transformation, he tried to combine it with nature transformation, as his teacher Minato had intended, but found it too difficult. In reaction to this failure, he instead created the Chidori, which also combines nature and shape transformation, but wasn't nearly as difficult. Naruto was now mastering that theorized jutsu Minato thought about. The drawback of the technique was that when used as a high-speed thrust, Kakashi moves too fast to see and react to an enemy's counterattack. It could still be used this way, but not without putting him in danger, which made it a dangerous, imperfect technique. However, once he acquired Obito's Sharingan, he was able to perfect it using its Eye of Insight, which allowed him to perceive counterattacks and avoid them. It was an A-class jutsu, but in Kakashi's hands, it became an S-class. Wait, why does this remind me of the Blue Flames, that legendary Sasuke Sarutobi used during the Warring States period? Was it perhaps built on this same principle? Tsunade suddenly shouted as she remembered something. She was the granddaughter and grandniece of Hashirama and Tobirama Senju, therefore she remembered some stories from the Warring States era. He was the sole reason for the Sarutobi clan's prestige. That man used to fight together with Hashirama and Madara, the founders of this village. As he was also older than them, he also used to defeat them quite a bit while they were all young. Though, he later agreed to join this village that they created. His ordinary fire style was better than all Vicha has combined, not because of its sheer size, but because of the man's exceptional control of fire release that he created, almost making it appear lifelike, taking various shapes like tigers. He had other chakra natures as well, mainly wind, with similar characteristics. Some people even speculated later that he combined the yang release with his attacks, giving him so much scale for his destruction with his ordinary Sarutobi chakra pull. Not to mention his deadly blue flames that he used for short-ranged fights by throwing killing blue kicks and punches, improving his ordinary fire release. Armor even more. That man was also the third Hokage's, Hiruzen Sarutobi's, their teacher's, father. He died naturally due to old age. Wait, it could truly be. Just like the most potent part of the lighting inside was purple in color, in the same way, the most potent part of the fire is its blue innermost hottest layer. Jiraiya exclaimed, and here I thought that I invented this, Master Jiraiya. Kakashi totally forgot about those legends. It is the same principle, I guess. I even theorized that it could be used only on the lighting and fire release, because it's in its essence actually a process of making something hotter, meaning more dangerous and mighty, though it also increases its speed as well. Kakashi responded back. He was glad that he touched upon that person's legendary level all on his own, without a Kekkei Jinkai too. This is not all, but I don't want to make empty promises. But, if I get to that final level of Haddock's clan's swordsmanship, that even my father couldn't get, and that was the last since only during the Samurai era. The true reason why our clan was one of the strongest during that time, that technique that the leader of the Land of Iron also probably has, the ability to affect the natural energy and infuse your ordinary sword chakra slashes with them. And then there is also the matter of fusing my purple lighting with my swordsmanship, that I could certainly do in a few months. However, that thing with natural energy is really far-fetched, Kakashi suddenly thought inwardly. However, he missed nearly decades of Kenjutsu training, making it hard to ever surpass his father at his peak, who constantly trained in Kenjutsu, without a break, from the moment he was born. So, he wasn't pushing to surpass him, but just to get on his own level, the peak cage level stronger than the Sanin's, and the majority of today's great ninja villages' cages. It was also enough for most of the Akatsuki members, the rest he could only leave for Naruto, who he thought had a monstrous talent. Where is Naruto? Should we check on him as well? Tsunade suddenly smiled while remembering Naruto's recent training. She couldn't always check on him due to work. He's resting for a while. However, he's really close to effectively fusing his shape, transformation Rasengan with his wind release nature transformation, and breaking the limits of Minato-sensei. He's about to create something amazing that will leave us all shocked. I didn't expect that Naruto got so intelligent. Kakashi proudly responded after following Naruto's progress with shadow clones recently. Naruto mastered the wind release nearly completely from the beginning. However, the hardest part was to see if he could fuse his Rasengan with it, and make something ever more advanced. He was currently on a very short ramen break, with Sakura. After all, that method of training was damaging to his body. Kakashi, who used only a few clones with his version of training recently, knew it well. The Rasengan was an A-rank ninjutsu and one with the highest possible level of the simple and pure chakra-shaped transformation. It releases chakra from the palm of the ninja's hand, which spins wildly in all directions at once, and is compressed into the shape of a sphere. The chakra swirls like a typhoon, but stably maintains its rotation and power, creating the equivalent of a hurricane in one's hand. Once the ninja strikes their enemy, the compressed force of the rotation is released, and its destructive power is amplified. It grinds into the target's body and releases a spiraling shockwave of force into and beyond them, to sweep away everything in its path, and overturn the earth as it blasts them back. The amount of force the Rasengan can unleash depends on the number and speed of the chakra's rotation, the amount of chakra it contains, and how stable the compression is. The more it spins, the faster it spins, and the more chakra released, then the greater it becomes in size and power. The less chakra the user possesses and/or the less control they have, then the smaller and weaker their Rasengan would be. The exact effect that the Rasengan has on its target can be controlled by the caster to a degree. It can expend all of its energies into grinding away at the target instead of exploding, or the rotation can be weakened to avoid internal damage, and only throw them back with the force of the explosion. The effects also vary between human and non-human targets, as the former receive lethal internal damage, but remain intact, while the latter is usually blown apart as they are unable to withstand it. It was invented by the fourth Hokage, Namikaze Minato, when he was inspired by witnessing the tailed beast bomb. He later analyzed how it worked and believed that he could recreate that process with his own chakra. It took him 3 years of experimenting with chakra manipulation to create the Rasengan, or the spiraling Ultra Hurricane Human Beast Ball as it was originally named. That jutsu was taught to Naruto by Jiraiya a couple of years back. However, it was just an unfinished product. From the very beginning, Minato had intended to combine this ninjutsu with nature transformation. By adding nature transformation to the pinnacle of shape transformation, he meant to create one of the most advanced and powerful ninjutsu possible. A truest class level technique. Minato, however, died before he could see its completion, and no one he taught the Rasengan to was able to accomplish it when they tried either. Kakashi recently explained this to his son, Uzumaki Naruto, the process, and then he tried to follow in their footsteps. Naruto's solution was to use another shadow clone to add his nature transformed chakra to the Rasengan, dividing the chakra creation, shape transformation, and nature transformation between 3 people, to reduce the amount of effort and concentration each one needs. Naruto was currently very close to succeeding. He was also getting closer to creating a powerful kinjutsu that could cause deadly damage to his opponents. On a cellular level, however, it could also damage himself in a way, therefore, it couldn't be used often. They didn't know this yet, but Naruto only managed to overcome this weakness later after fusing that ninjutsu with Senjutsu chakra, which allowed him to throw it at the enemy instantly, and escape self-harm in that way, or by using his Kyuubi chakra mode, he could guide it with his tails ahead onto his enemy. That was called the Wind Release. Rasen Shuriken, however, Naruto had the lesser, more safe, version of it, called the Wind Release. Rasengan. Naruto was now close to mastering that second one first. They were similar in appearance, the only difference being in size. Right above an endless open sea, somewhere west of the Great Land of Water's territory, near the previous Uzoshiagakure's old ruins, Neji, Kiyomi, and Karen stood together on top of the water on a hot day, by attaching chakra onto their feet. The salty smell of the sea filled their noses. Many months had already passed by since they first made that secretive Uzumaki Coral Island their home. Today was the first time they were going to leave it. They got pretty connected and grew closer to one another during that time, having been constantly training and discussing various things together, mainly about their power build-ups and new jutsu. Lately, they even fought a few times while using their full powers. Neji also purposefully tried to build some kind of us versus the world mentality inside of them, so they would be less likely to betray him in the future. Although, he did it very subtly so they couldn't catch on. It was how they passed all their time in the middle of the sea. Neji already turned 17 years old. He was now 6'3" in height, and it seemed that his body finally developed completely. His face was more mature, and his hair was still very long for a male, and was kept loosened to full freely. Kiyomi and Karen were around the same age, but they looked the same as they did months ago. It appeared that they developed even earlier than himself. Neji was wearing his usual white-colored kimono, Kiyomi wore her black sleeveless skirt which was a shinobi uniform as well, and Karen wore her favorite light purple top, under which was mesh armor. Neji looked at the 2 girls beside him, who appeared quite serious and prepared, and he smiled. It seems that Gaara already became the Kazukiage, so the Akatsuki would soon go to capture him, and then the second part of Naruto's plot would officially start, Neji thought suddenly. News travels fast in this world, and thanks to Kiyomi's black market sources, Neji knew about Gaara. Now is the time to finally visit Konoha once again, and take that chakra source from Hiashi. He needs to grow faster now. He needs more chakra for him to be able to use his Dojutsu even more. Until he turned the DNA vision, he could only rely on more chakra quantity. The Akatsuki would soon start collecting the tailed beasts, and even the 4th Great Shinobi War wasn't that far away from that point onward, as the plot in Shippuden happened quite fast. He needs to get prepared. With his lifelong outstanding chakra control, Neji developed a way to be able to activate that mode on any part of his body in isolation. During the last few months, after carefully planning this specific operation and scenario inside of his head, he could apply it just on his legs to make himself quicker. He could apply it just on his hands to make his punches more powerful, and even on other parts of his body, where he expects damage to come for general durability purposes. However, he still wasn't able to enlarge any of his body parts, as it was probably a unique ability of those giant Tensogun energy vessels of Toneri and Hiashi. Neji was now high up the early 6 paths level in his estimates, due to this chakra-saving method that he devised. It brought him even more confidence to start this operation with both Might Guy and Jiraiya, probably not leaving Konoha anymore nowadays. He was confident enough to finally use Tensogun once more into Konoha, despite Toneri possibly locating them again, because their strength grew enough that he was convinced that they together could be able to push Toneri back head-on. He already saw what they were capable of now before. After all, one was Uzumaki and one Uchiha. Whereas he grew slowly during this period, learning just a few new things, they grew exponentially like supernovas, especially her. She is already on my level. Neji thought seriously after looking at Kiyomi Uchiha. Performing that Hashirama Senju cellular injection on the two did wonders for them. He performed that using his previous thought-out method with his expert-level chakra control and cell vision. Just like that operation on himself. Kiyomi not only got rid of her blindness and pain problems, after successfully adopting those cells, reversing all of the previous damage by an extension, but her chakra reserves skyrocketed as well, allowing her to use more of her Mangekyou's abilities in a single battle. It was the first development. However, the second and additional development for her was that after practicing Dan Kato's soul techniques during those months, her spiritual and yin powers soared as well, giving her access to the second powerful armored Susanoo stage, and even the final perfect Susanoo wasn't that far off. However, it still required more time. Her other Mangekyo time slowing and speeding abilities, which by default relied on yin release as well, got the boost in effect and shortened cooldowns. It could be said that Kiyomi, from an ordinary world traveler, joined the ranks of only a few powerhouses on this continent, and it was all thanks to himself. She is now early 6 paths same as me, and in the future, she could even join the middle 6 paths level. She just needs more time to practice that soul exercise as I did. And then some idiots in my previous life thought that genetics and inherited power didn't matter in the Neriverse. It is actually the most important thing instead. Your bloodlines are the main thing that matters here. Or in other words, fate is the most important thing. However, some people can really break that fate, but not through training and working hard, but mainly by working smart and being visionary, by changing your programmed code, your own DNA, Neji suddenly thought while reminiscing. In fact, he reached that conclusion way back in that dark period right after he transmigrated into young Neji's body, after a lot of very extensive thinking during those 3 years. The only thing that he could do there was to think all day long. And Kiyomi didn't just have the right genes and experiences for awakening the Mangekyo, she also had an unearthly luck to meet me, the only person who could do a successful and safe injection of Senju cells on her, who also had this much experience in improving yin Jujutsu powers, Neji thought, while looking at her intensely. She was as dazzling as ever in terms of physical appearance. Kiyomi furrowed her pretty eyebrows after seeing Neji suddenly looking at her so seriously, while Karen opened her mouth curiously a little in a joking manner. Neji eventually finally asked frankly, "Kiyomi, what I am to you?" Karen now whitened her eyes, not having the previous funny demeanor, while Kiyomi turned silent for a while and looked straight at Neji's eyes. "I'm your subordinate. I will keep my word to you no matter what happens." Kiyomi finally answered in a very resolute manner. She also understood Neji's concerns. After all, she was not an ordinary Jonin-level person anymore. Even she didn't know how exactly strong she was currently, or if maybe she already surpassed Neji. But it didn't change her previous thoughts about Neji, who gave her everything in the first place. She wouldn't have even been alive now had Neji not saved her at that time, not to mention this powerful. If Neji didn't interfere in her revenge plans, she would always listen to him unreservedly. "You will continue listening to me even if I'm weaker than you now?" Neji continued probing seriously. "Yes, as long as you don't interfere in my revenge plans for later." Kiyomi responded. "That's good to hear. But I'm not weaker than you yet. We're for now around the same level in my estimates. However, even now, you're still incapable of enacting your revenge. Itachi and Kisame are both peak age levels. They could potentially run away from you. Konoha has many monsters hidden that you don't even know much about. Meanwhile, Sasuke Uchiha has even more potential than you. I'm from Konoha and I know everything about it. Even if you fully master your Susanoo, in the future, you would still not be able to fully complete your revenge." Neji returned to a normal tone. He just wanted to test her a little before telling her all of those secrets he prepared for now. Kiyomi made a surprised expression after hearing his explanation. But she understood Neji quite well now, and she knew that he probably had a second part to his explanation, and she was right. Neji continued speaking. Karen was also listening in surprise. "That is, unless you stay with me until I unlock the most important potential of my Taijutsu, the DNA vision. At that time, only the sky is the limit. Then I could try to unlock an even greater level of Taijutsu for you, which is an extension of the Mangekyo Sharingan, the Rinnegan, of the Sage of Six Paths, on the same level as my own Taijutsu." Karen exclaimed in surprise, and even Kiyomi felt flabbergasted while looking toward him. In fact, you two deserve to know all of these secrets now after following me for so long, so listen carefully. And just like that, Neji started relying on the same kind of information he once told to Orochimaru. After all, he planned for both of them to unlock legendary Rinnegan after touching upon their genes later. He was sure that now, due to Senju cells and their genetic heritage, they at least had a chance of unlocking it, especially Kiyomi, who was both Senju and Uchiha in a way now. He told this mainly because of Kiyomi, just to be 100% sure that she won't leave him. It took quite a while for those two to digest all of the things he said, but right after that, they moved. Around 24 hours later, they were already inside the luscious territory of the Land of Fire. They were passing by many smaller and bigger civilian villages, on their way to Konoha, through various forests, mountains, and terrains. They were now all moving much faster than before even at their base speed, because Neji didn't have to slow back his speed at all this time around. Neji said while glancing at the two girls, one red-haired and one black-haired, who were also running beside him, "Do you remember everything about the plan completely? This is really important to me, I trust you too," Neji said as he glanced specifically at Karen's pretty face, now without glasses due to Senju healing factor. She was also very pretty now, on Tenten's level, albeit both of them were not on Kiyomi's level. Neji felt more confident about Kiyomi following his plans perfectly than Karen. "Don't worry, Neji, I will perform this mission successfully, no matter what happens." Karen looked at Neji lovingly and winked. She was now somehow even more confident than she was before. She was aware of her current strength and pretty appearance without glasses. Neji just nodded at her. She knew that she was just a level below Kiyomi and Neji in strength now, and already on the peak of this continent, stronger than many Cage. Unlike Kiyomi, her Senju cell injections already gave her the perfect wood release, albeit not on the level of the first Hokage, who also had a powerful Sage mode to assist him even further, but still very powerful. Her mindset was that of a powerhouse now. She could also now perform medical ninjutsu, fuinjutsu, various elemental ninjutsu, some Uzumaki clan's secret techniques, barrier ninjutsu, explosive shadow clones, and many others. And she will become even stronger in the future as she really doesn't want to be left behind in front of Neji and Kiyomi, especially the latter. She always regarded her as some kind of a competitor for some reason. Nowadays she could even sense 200 kilometers away with her ordinary sensing, and 100 kilometers ahead with her Kaguru's mind eye. It was 4 times better range than before. She was sure that the more time passes, the more proficient she would be in those areas that she previously didn't know much about. She had great motivation to learn. It was all to repay Neji and be useful to him. After all, he cured her eyesight, saved her from Orochimaru, and gave her this world-class level of strength and so much secret knowledge of this world. He was also the first person who showed her real love. Even if it was not in that kind of man-to-woman way, she didn't experience someone caring for her in any way ever since her mother died from overworking then. "Well, Karen, it was one of the best decisions of my life to pick you up from that hole back then." Neji smiled and praised her while teasing her at the same time. He also moved to pat her head a little. He then suddenly thought about her recent astonishing growth. She is at a peak age level, already with true potential for even more growth. She just needs more time. Neji knew about Karen's wood release very well as they fought many times recently during their training sessions. It obviously isn't on Hashirama's level due to her lack of Sage mode that he possessed and used in addition to his fabled wood release, which was possibly the Slug Sage mode, the strongest and most difficult one to learn. However, the Senju cell's implantation increased her Yang release affinities. And the soul exercise method I also gave her some time ago increased her Yin release affinity. It all made her pretty quick in learning those advanced stages of the adamantine sealing chains, and the death repair seal of her clan. Neji marveled at her enormous potential as well. "Kiyomi, I guess this time you could maybe also get a taste of revenge a little if our plans don't go perfectly. Then maybe the strongest people of Konoha will attack us. Are you ready?" Neji finished his previous train of thought and asked Kiyomi next, who was on the other side of him while running. "They should get ready for me." Kiyomi replied, full of a menacing aura. She also became much more confident than ever before. Neji nodded while thinking of his recently revised plan next. Previously, Neji's plans was to engage Hiashi inside the Konoha, make him call upon the energy of that giant Tensugen of his, alongside Kiyomi for long enough until Karen, who was supposed to be outside the village, managed to find the position of his chakra vessel by following its small vortex-like trace, and leave her clones behind to lead the way. However, recently, after a lot of thinking, Neji threw out that plan completely. Mainly because he thought of a lot safer alternative. All 3 of them were going to attack and immobilize Hiashi at the maximum speed possible, and then he is going to search Hiashi's memories, with his Tensugen memory reading ability to find the exact location of it way easier. 3 of them could probably take Hiashi out relatively easily and swiftly. Remember, we're going to move swiftly and decisively, only Hiashi is our priority. We're going to try and immobilize him in order to take him away from the village, in order for me to carefully extract his memories of the location of that treasure. In the worst case scenario, however, I'm going to try and read his memories right then and there if we don't have other options. I'm going to carry you two in with my Tensogen chakra mode. Kiyomi will also accelerate our speed with her Mangekyo. Once we get there, Karen, you will make a large barrier, and then try to seal his body once you get the chance while we all engage him fiercely at the same time. We're later leaving Konoha in the same fashion that we entered afterward. Nonetheless, be prepared for some potential disturbances and interruptions along the way, mainly from Jiraiya and Might Guy, who I told you about before. Neji patiently went over their entire plan once again with them while they currently approached Konoha, their target, really close. He previously informed them of Jiraiya and Guy and their abilities. He mentioned a few others as well, like Tsunade's medical prowesses and Kakashi's spatial taijutsu. However, a few minutes later, when they arrived right outside the village, Karen suddenly opened her eyes wide and spoke urgently, after sensing something beneath the ground they were presently standing on. Wait for a while, Neji, there are weird plant-like beings scattered here all over the underground. Karen barely managed to sense a dozen of unusual presences below. They were sneaking around the entire Konoha, in the forest, attached to the roots of those trees, and were incredibly hard to sense. She was also sure that if she didn't get injected with those senju cells before, she wouldn't have been able to sense them now. After all, in addition to her sensing range improvement, she also got a quality of sensing boost as well. Where do they come from? Are they on Konoha's side? Kiyomi suddenly interjected too after hearing that while Karen spoke once more. They are really creeping me out. They're not all that strong, they're just sneaky and disturbing. Neji and Kiyomi also got pretty surprised after hearing that. Wait, those are probably white Zetsu clones. We shouldn't touch them then, but even if we don't, they might still alert Obito in time to ruin my plans. Well, what could we do? Forget about them. Lean onto me. We're breaching the sensing barrier. Neji decided to ignore it, and then spoke to those two beside him. He quickly turned his whole body's blue Tensogen chakra mode. Powerful energy filled his entire being. He then embraced both Kiyomi and Karen, while moving their arms to his sturdy shoulders and back. If they remove those white Zetsu clones, they might alert both Konoha preemptively and Obito, but if they leave them be, then they could only potentially inform and alert Obito of their presence. The first choice was obviously more logical to take. And not like that Obito would certainly decide to come if he knew about them. In Neji's current opinion, well, he needs to run the Akatsuki and stuff. After a few moments, Neji and the two suddenly glided through the air at light speed, not caring about the sensing barrier there. After a short while, they stopped right above the familiar Hyuga clan residence, which was a place of many great disturbances that happened inside the Konoha during the last couple of years. Neji was already aware of Toneri's visit to Konoha a few months ago. Kiyomi was a bit surprised at how Konoha looked now since she wasn't there since she was a child. She also looked at the Hyuga residence below curiously. Konoha's Anbu and root operatives, on the scene, in various secret positions outside the compound, opened their mouths wide and expeditiously left to report this to their superiors. They were ordered not to engage with Neji or Toneri, at any cost, previously, as they were deemed too much of a threat for them to engage with. Neji didn't care about them and immediately ordered, Karen, activate your barrier, and let's get him out of there. Karen nodded to his words, and promptly many large adamantine chains instantly sprouted out from her back. They encircled the whole Hyuga compound like lightning without delay. They served as some kind of shaping frames and chakra transmitters for her best barrier ninjutsu, the Uzumaki clan. In this way, the barrier was much stronger than ordinary, and could be controlled and scaled in a superior way. Neji remembered how Kushina Uzumaki also performed this technique in the original. The blue barrier chakra sphere soon materialized all around this large compound for everyone in this village to see. He's there, don't care about any of those other clansmen, do everything you can to incapacitate him. Neji suddenly said after checking for Hiyashi's position with his Tensogen, and then pointing to it with his finger with an indifferent face. It all happened within a few seconds since they arrived. Karen and Kiyomi were a little surprised by his ruthlessness, but then nodded in agreement. Karen, who was now controlling her adamantine chains and that large barrier ninjutsu, as well as sensing the entirety of Konoha for potential interference with her Kagura's mind eye, suddenly clasped her hands as well, and launched another kind of ninjutsu, a very special one. She awakened it naturally the other day after getting those cells. Would release. Deforest emergence. Neji and Kiyomi looked in awe no matter just how many times they witnessed it, and even wrestled against it in the past during their usual fighting sessions. Karen created a dense growth of trees while controlling how they grew by using her chakra. The tree's life force is immense enough to split the earth as they sprout, and further pierce through any other obstructions they encounter. This growth is also fast enough that it can capture targets before they have a chance to escape. Hashirama Senju used this technique to serve as a foundation for Konoha. Alongside that technique, Karen also devised many others Hashirama also used in the original, with the help from Neji. The required hand seals weren't that difficult to figure out for him. The hand seals were not precise mathematical constant-like formulas. They were more so just an approximal tool used by shinobi as their main chakra control instrument to assist them in launching various ninjutsu. Some hand seals or their sequences were just better than others in some nature changes. They weren't even necessary for any ninjutsu at the end of the day. They were just helpful for easier chakra control, the amount of chakra input, the shape of your ninjutsu, the potency of it, and the final scale you wanted, amongst others. Some shinobi could even launch ninjutsu without any hand seals, or by using just one hand for it like Itachi or Haku. There were special man-made constructs shinobi were trained at, from the academy, and made to resonate with souls in many specific ways, through that exact same training for later use, while learning ninjutsu from your shinobi instructors. However, just when those gigantic trees Karen made, sprouting from the ground, broke through the whole complex, straight toward Hiyashi's place, they all suddenly saw a big rotational, white-like force breaking them all at the same time, and then a strange man stepped forward in the sky. However, his appearance was nothing like Neji remembered him. His white eyes were bloodshot and he looked really haggard. And it was not just Hiyashi who was strange, nearby branch members, on the lookouts, also had a soulless and suffering look for some reason. The atmosphere was heavy. Hiyashi, what happened to you since I left? How could one distinguished main branch patriarch be so depressed? Neji suddenly looked at him with a joking expression. Kiyomi and Karen looked at him surprised a bit. She knew about Neji's previous history, however she rarely saw Neji in such a good mood before. Try using your curse mark on me. Maybe if you wish for it hard enough, it would work. Neji continued mocking him ruthlessly, and Hiyashi's expression looked crazier and crazier. Wait, where is your precious daughter? I don't see her inside. Neji suddenly wondered. Neji, you beast, it is all your fault. Hiyashi's expression twisted even more, and he fiercely launched himself at Neji and them, while previously already activating his connection to the ancient giant Tensugen of their clan. He didn't appear to be paying any attention to Kiyomi and Karen beside him. Wait, don't tell me she maybe killed herself after losing her eyes. Knowing that Hiyashi, he probably attempted to court Hinata as the next inheritor of the clan right away and abandoned Hanabi. After all, she is still such a young girl who got blind and was probably forsaken by her father too. Then let's test it. Hiyashi, did poor Hanabi kill herself? Neji suddenly thought of that and questioned. I will kill you. Hiyashi yelled even harder, up in the air, after hearing Neji's questions. So that's quite a deserving payback. At least my father didn't have to watch me die as Hiyashi did his favorite daughter. That's your main branch fate you were so proud of. Neji obviously didn't feel an ounce of sadness or pity toward Hiyashi and his daughter, despite them being his supposed close relatives. And, before Hiyashi could get any closer to them, a dozen of Karen's trees grew in size straight to his position, while Kiyomi's red eyes suddenly fascinatingly changed their shape into another one, and then a surge of evil aura came out from Kiyomi's soul, manifesting a large demonic-looking chakra being of black color. It was nearly the size of this whole compound and Karen's barrier. It was her Susanoo in its armored stage. It was black in color and menacing in appearance, holding some kind of a big scythe as well like a Shinigami. It also swung that weapon right at the shocked Hiyashi. Every Chiha's Susanoo had its own unique weapons that were an extension of the Susanoo's will and presence. Kiyomi's father Susanoo, for example, had a giant hammer that could also be easily increased and decreased in size. Kiyomi got that scythe that responded to her time-speeding ability wonderfully. Kiyomi theorized that in the next stage of evolution, the scythe will manifest chains too. Hiyashi's rotation was currently on cooldown at this moment, therefore he could only grit his teeth and use his gravitational ability to deal with those emerging, still growing big trees, and the black chakra giant. Karen's overgrown trees, coming from all sides, were destroyed, but keep coming back in almost an unlimited number of barrage-like attacks. But Kiyomi's demonic scythe kept drilling in. Hiyashi's entire body now got filled with white chakra energy. Damn, how did Neji get both the wood release user, second in the whole history, and an Uchiha Mangekyou Sharingan user with a Susanoo? It seems that I'm really cursed by something. Hiyashi's face was now both furious and despondent. He thought that he was even dreaming about this encounter because he knew just how rare those two abilities really were in today's world, and the status of the only two clans that could birth them. We caught him off guard before he managed to prepare and create an earth puppet golem. I could also wait for his gravity ability to come to a cooldown. However, this must be over quickly. Neji suddenly joined his hand together and thrusted them forward while he focused as if visualizing something. His control over gravitational forces was much more precise and refined than Hiyashi's. Therefore, Neji attempted to focus it on a single point and break right through his current defense. Hiyashi was now effectively pressured in 3 different directions. His face was getting worse and worse. A full minute passed after that point, and Neji's gravitational pressure progressed to his body. Neji was understandably following his gravitational tunnel and entered near his body as well. Karen followed right behind him, her hands still closed together in order to summon even more trees, while Kiyomi was inside her Susanoo a little further away. Hiyashi looked at them all in indignation. Looking at Karen's chains on her back, barrier on the outside, and her hair color, he realized that they planned to probably seal and subdue him in order for Neji to read his memory with Tensugen. Hiashi suddenly looked at Neji's young face, feeling incredible hatred and resentment. He couldn't think straight anymore. He just knew that there was no way that he would let Neji get what he wanted, no matter the costs. No, he was now preparing to even give everything in order to kill him. He was left with nothing to lose. Hanabi was dead, Hinata doesn't want to even talk to him, and she took refuge in Tsunade's faction. And she was the only main branch successor left. However, he was sure that with her personality, she would probably abolish their curse mark system as soon as he passed away, or even bring that treasure to the village, specifically to Tsunade faction. They already realized that, by the looks of it, and often met with Hinata, manipulating her with Naruto for example alongside other love-bombing tactics, and the usual will of fire brainwashing in addition. Alright, if the main branch got finished like this, then there are no more reasons for you bastards to exist either. Hiashi's face suddenly turned crazed but decisive as well, while looking at Neji's clean forehead and mesmerizing arctic blue eyes. He then turned to look at hidden and frightened branch members nearby. Neji realized something and attempted to stop him, however promptly they all fell onto the ground in agony. Hiashi's gravitational force suddenly recovered and pushed Neji and Karen backward. Neji looked at his expression, realized something, and shouted a little annoyed. He is prepared to sacrifice them all, in order to get temporary power. Go all out quickly. Kiyomi and Karen opened their eyes wide. Kiyomi immediately added the time-speeding powers of her left eye, on the giant's side, in order to try and break through Hiashi's gravity. And it really worked. The previously stopped side suddenly started slowly moving toward Hiashi once again. Karen was currently occupied with keeping the barrier, her chains, and those trees, therefore she couldn't launch another ninjutsu in a short time. However, Hiashi looked at the black side then Kiyomi's eyes, which looked like the upper part of the cropped rose diagram shaped in resentment. The wailing side branch members, rolling all over the ground in suffering, suddenly started rapidly losing their previous skin tones. Their life forces were for the first time now really drained by Hiashi. I need to at least get his memories before Konoha comes, so we can run. Neji furrowed his brows and quickly came behind Kiyomi's giant side, also pushing it with his gravity-like spear of pressure. Kiyomi and Karen glanced at those members who were now slowly turning into rotting skeletons in surprise. They were the side branch members with no previous hatred with Neji. Moreover, they even shared the same fate as him. They couldn't believe that Neji was so indifferent toward them. You must know that in this world, the shinobi clans were even considered to be above your villages in terms of devotion, second only to your family, due to the previous hundreds of years of clan system ruling in the entirety of the warring states here. A hidden village system got introduced just recently in comparison to that. It wasn't even there for a full century. That's why Kiyomi hated Itachi so much in the first place. She not only hated him for killing her closest family, her parents, but for killing her entire clan too. People in this world had almost natural affection and a sense of belonging to their clans from the moment of birth. Even Karen, who never met her clan beforehand, held an unexplainable sense of affection and familiarity for her clan's birthplace after visiting there. Neji somehow noticed their thought and suddenly turned away, his voice indifferent and his face ice cold and serious. Yes, I pity them, but so what? What do they have to do with me? They are not my children. Even Hiashi, in his maddened state, turned surprised after hearing Neji's apathetic words. How could they understand that Neji was not originally from this world with no original sense of belonging toward anyone in this universe? He viewed all of the people here as bystanders. Moreover, Hiashi, who was their patriarch, wanted to kill them. How could he, a transmigrator, care? Additionally, seeing their pitiful appearance just now reminded him of his former self. He didn't even want to look at them. For someone to earn good feelings for Neji, in this world, after everything he had been through, they had to go to extreme lengths for him, or some kind of a true miracle happened. Those kinds of people can't be counted on one hand now, and it didn't mean that he put them on the same level as himself. If he needed to sacrifice them, in some way, in order for him to live, he would do that without a second thought. His primary purpose in life, after getting freedom and revenge, was to now strengthen himself to the peak and protect his life no matter the danger. Moreover, during his first few years of life, after he transmigrated into this world, it was even worse. Neji didn't view them even as bystanders. Instead, he viewed everyone, other than himself, as some kind of imaginary pixels and mindless NPCs. It was only after he met his previous team that he softened up a little, and finally agreed to the notion that everyone in this world was real in the same way as he was an actual being himself. However, even if they all were real, on the same level of existence as he was, he still didn't care for them all. He still only cared for himself fundamentally. And just like that, Hiashi was using the energy of his giant Tensugen, in addition to everyone's life forces. However, it still wasn't enough for him to deal with them. After another minute, every side branch member turned to ashes, from their previous near-skeletal state, and already died in the most gruesome ways possible. Hiyashi was finally pressed by Neji's gravity in place after he came in front of him. Hiyashi's resistance was finally over, his gravity protection ending. But just then, Neji heard Karen's shouts. "Neji, I sense 4 strong people coming right here. Read his memories now." 4. Did they bring someone else with them? Neji nodded and thanked Karen. He previously thought that only Tsunade, Guy, and Jiraiya would engage them. Their previous plan was to bring Hiyashi's sealed body outside, to read his memories safer. However, now it wasn't possible because of intruders. Neji nodded and immediately pressed his hands onto Hiyashi's head, while controlling him with his gravity. Suddenly he stole some kind of a chakra orb from inside of it, placing it on himself. Hiyashi was furious and dismayed, but after getting his memories stolen away presently, he suddenly collapsed. After a few seconds, Neji digested all of his memories and smiled. He then sent a wave of natural energy toward Hiyashi's body, turning him into stone, and then fiercely kicking his body away, while breaking it like that into smaller pieces while laughing. "I found its location, let's leave, girls." Neji felt great and complete all of a sudden. The whole main branch was now eradicated, he was 100% free, and was about to get even stronger. Kiyomi and Karen looked at his face feeling surprised. People would have never guessed that the person he just dealt with in that way was his own blood uncle. Karen looked at Neji's chakra aura to confirm something, and it was the same otherworldly, apathetic and powerful one. Well, Kiyomi thought, "I have a lot to learn from Neji to complete my revenge." Middle 6 paths powerhouse down. However, we all used half of our chakra. Neji suddenly thought before Kiyomi turned off her Susanoo and came near him and Karen. They were preparing to leave straight toward the location of the giant Tensuga Neji found. Hiyashi entered the realm of the middle 6 paths powerhouse, after using the complete life forces of hundreds of the branch members. The clash was over in 3 minutes, and it looked quite easy. However, it was like that because they all rapidly burned through their reserves, in order to break through his gravitation defense as soon as possible, and leave before more people came. Hours worth of battle was over in just these short few minutes. Their chakra expenditure was much larger than Hiyashi's because they were taking the initiative to break it. It was a pure chakra concentration battle. They also caught Hiyashi by surprise, and he wasn't in the right mental state of mind to fight. Unlike normal shinobi who couldn't use half of their entire stamina in a short amount of time, like that, Neji and Kiyomi drew their powers straight from their Dijutsu, not ninjutsu. Therefore they didn't have a natural, set amount of chakra they could create from their stamina in a given time to use for ninjutsu. They could take however much stamina they wanted, while Karen's trees worked in a very similar manner. She could use however much chakra stamina, also called chakra reserves, she lacked at any time. Chakra reserves mean how much chakra potential you have in the bigger picture, while chakra potency meant how much chakra you could create and use at a specific time. Hiyashi was also directly drawing his powers from another source, not from his own body potency. At this point in time, Neji really doubted that Hagoromo and Hamura fought with Kagaya for weeks or months at that time. As it was mentioned in the anime, he felt like it could be at most for a few days. Chakra stamina or reserves, the big picture chakra measurement, and chakra potency, the short-term chakra measurement, were also mentioned in the original series in regard to Senju and Uchiha clans. One clan had the bigger stamina, while the other had better potency. One fought prolonged battles, while the other fought short-term burst battles. That's why also Uchiha's fireballs were much stronger than those of other people. It was because of their superior potency, the portion of their stamina they could draw up at any given time. It was also hypothesized to be related to their soul-leaning chakra disposition. Also, even ordinary shinobi had different potencies depending on genes. Karen, resolve your barrier on my signal. We're finished here. They now achieved their purpose for coming here, therefore Neji prepared for them all to leave next. Karen and Kiyomi nodded and walked near him. Neji's body suddenly glowed in azure blue color, with that distinctive flamey appearance and a single horn on his forehead once again. He activated his Tensugen chakra mode. Kiyomi, you should accelerate all of us again. He hugged them both together and jumped above. Karen, in the midair, already resolved her barrier and chains on Neji's signal. However, she suddenly opened her mouth and eyes in shock while sensing something else in the vicinity. And she couldn't manage to relay that kind of information to them on time, unfortunately, now due to the light speed they were currently moving. Tensugen chakra mode in addition to Kiyomi's time acceleration wasn't creating just any kind of speed. She furrowed her brows and slowly tried to wrestle those words out of her mouth. However, they have already arrived right at that mysterious person's place. Neji and the girls got stunned as they suddenly noticed a distinctive spatial vortex materialized right in front of them, in the open air, and then a masked man, who jumped out of it, performed a hand sign, conjuring some kind of fire, while also expelling a gust of air from his only visible eye, behind the mask, in their direction. Fire release. Glass wave wild dance. It was combination ninjutsu made from Obito's exceptional fire release, and his right Sharingan's vacuum-like ability. What on earth is going on here? Why did Obito come here, and why is he attacking me? Neji was taken aback as he quickly told Kiyomi, Kiyomi, we're still escaping this, don't stop with your ability. This situation was completely out of Neji's consideration before, so he suddenly dodged the incoming attack with his and Kiyomi's far above light speed. He still wanted to try and avoid this conflict. He got what he wanted already, he was about to be powered up, and he didn't need this. Neji's current speed was above light speed, not to mention with Kiyomi's speed amplification too. However, Neji was surprised to find that Obito's eyes started rapidly moving around now, seemingly keeping up with his speed. Then Obito calculated something and teleported in front of the position where Neji was about to move through, and launched the same ninjutsu attack. Obito's Kamui speed was even faster than light. No, it was not even a matter of speed, it was straight teleportation. Obito just needed great reaction speed to use it, and he had that. Therefore, it was a clash of Neji's whole body speed with just Obito's reaction speed. It was clear that he had an advantage in that contest. Obito was obviously using a less amount of chakra in order to deal with Neji, who had turned the 10-second chakra mode. Neji's face turned serious. He wasn't liking this unexpected turn of events. I need to forget about escaping, turn off my 10-second chakra mode, and fight him in another way. And those Konoha had already arrived now below. Damn Obito, why did you do this? Neji cursed, and also, was he always this quick? I didn't expect him to keep up so well with this chakra mode. But, what do you think? That Konoha will fight together with you. They will just watch this from the sidelines. And I personally am stronger than you, not to mention the three of us together. Even if we're at half of our strength, you don't stand a chance. Neji's face was angered, and he finally stopped the strange stalemate once they were outside the village. In the nearby forest, Kiyomi, Karen, prepared to fight this person. They descended upon the nearby mountain, and he turned off his 10-second chakra mode in order to save some of his stamina and use it in that new partial way. Yes, those are Tsunade, Jiraiya, Gai-sensei and Kakashi. Neji could also sense them inside this closed distances with his own Senju cells, not to mention that he knew their chakra signatures well. Obito appeared in front of them in the next second as well. He was wearing his recognizable orange mask full of swirls and the Akatsuki cloak. His voice was hoarse. Neji Hyuga, we finally meet. You're full of surprises. One Uzumaki clan survivor with the fabled wood release and another Mangekyou Sharingan user of the massacred Uchiha clan, who also appears to be infused with Senju cells inside. You're the greatest threat to me, Madara Uchiha, and my organization, the Akatsuki. Indeed, Obito looked at them while first frowning behind his mask, then he turned murderous. Previously white Zetsu clones relied on the information about the appearance of Neji Hyuga and the Konoha, all the way to one of his hideouts, where he and the main Zetsu body were located. Obito was immediately grabbed in and left to spectate that. He was especially confident in doing that because of the recent return of his other eye. He was also curious about the two people besides Neji he was also informed of. He then finally got there at the moment when they ended the Hyuga Patriarch, and he caught a few things regarding their abilities. He knew that the only way to catch them then was to immediately act, and he did that. He was also aware of their chakra levels vaguely. He needed tact because, at that time, he finally considered Neji to be the biggest hindrance to his plans for the future. And unlike before, he now had absolute confidence in dealing with him there. He knew that anyone who can successfully transplant Senju cells like that, even better than Madara could, and who could gather two such strong subordinates, was an endgame opponent for him, who fortunately he got a chance to now kill preemptively. Black Zetsu also strongly urged him to. He was also highly competitive now after getting that kind of power sensation after getting back his other eye. If everything goes back, I could even steal his subordinates now. Obito grinned inside while looking at Karen and Kiyomi, who now looked like they were prepared for battle seriously, after Neji whispered something quietly to their ears. Konoha's 4 powerhouses were also hidden near. Neji and Kiyomi now couldn't take any life force away from Karen by biting her, because she wasn't as useless nowadays as she used to be. She was currently also a formidable fighter of their team who needed that energy herself. Karen suddenly whispered something back to Neji, who opened his eyes a bit in shock. She analyzed Obito's chakra aura with Kagaya's mind eye extensively just now, even further than him. And the information he received was totally conflicted with his previous lives. This Obito seemed much stronger. She also mentioned how his soul powers were exceptionally huge. Kiyomi also realized that he had Mangekyou Sharingan at this time as well and asked loudly, "Who are you? Why do you have the Mangekyou Sharingan?" she asked after taking a closer look. Neji thought about something while Kiyomi asked him that question. Neji was sure that Obito wanted to kill him, and he knew that it was best to wait for them all to recover their chakra back a little. They all now had those magical-like Senju regenerative cells, and it was a matter of tens of minutes before their reserves got decently recovered. That's what Neji whispered to them. He wanted to drag this on if he couldn't defeat Obito right away, because he was somehow stronger than he previously thought. That seemed to be also the reason why he decided to attack him in the first place. That was why Neji didn't calculate Obito's interruption before. He didn't factor in that. That was also why Neji now let Kiyomi question Obito. It was in an effort to buy some time. He previously told them a little about Obito's abilities. It It was just that he told them that he figured it out at this moment today. Wait, did he get that eye back from Kakashi? But when? This is bad, I might really die here then. Neji suddenly thought in desperation after looking more intently behind Obito's mask, now with his Tensegun's vision ability that came from his Byakugan. He wanted to check more carefully for a new source of the potential power that Obito acquired, but he really didn't expect this revelation. There really was another eye of the same power level hidden there. It was just that Karen and himself couldn't sense it, because it was carefully masked by some kind of a seal. Neji instantly figured out the severity of this. Calm down, I still have an information advantage on my side. Previously, even Konoha didn't publicize the matter of Kakashi losing his eye either, therefore, how could have Neji known? Neji understood just how overpowered Obito with his other eye could be. It was for that sole reason that the original creator made that kind of a nerf. Obito with both eyes could solo the entire Nereverse, and fans speculated back there. Neji was angry at himself now. He didn't expect, nor did he factor in that his own made butterfly effect created those kinds of unexpected changes. He's probably the late 6 paths level. I must think. Neji suddenly calmed himself down, and racked his brain in hopes of resolving this situation despite being so overwhelmed. His thoughts then flew in various directions. Obito's speed of escaping into intangibility is probably his currently strongest Kamui-related speed. It only depended on his reaction time. That is probably the only speed I can't deal with for now. His teleportation speed, meaning going into the Kamui dimension, and then somewhere else in the real dimension, I can deal with as I did previously in the air. His long-range Kamui activation speed, and close-range pulling in, even though they were probably boosted now, faster than in the original, because he has the complete set of eyes now, I could probably deal with as well, Neji analyzed. But just the Tensegun chakra mode, Toneri used to keep up with peak Naruto, in the original series. But Neji's current base body was weaker than Toneri's at that time, and he still didn't get a complete Tensegun, but an inferior product he lacked chakra for. Therefore, Neji thought that he could deal only with Obito's Kamui-based attacks, but not against Obito's intangibility defense too. However, another problem was his chakra reserves. He can't dodge Obito's Kamui attacks forever, because he would run out of chakra because his Tensegun chakra mode spends more than Obito's Kamui. Not to mention now when his reserves were effectively halved by Hiashi. Neji calculated all of that information in an instant. His spiritual powers, therefore intelligence, was now off the charts. Hence, I must deal with Obito in some way before I ran out of chakra, and he kills me off, by using my intelligence advantage. There were only a couple of ways to deal with it in the original series. There were a few of my own ways as well. Let's see, I don't have the flying Raijin and the reaction speed of Minato, which is crossed. I don't have 600 billion paper bombs like Conan prepared, which is also crossed. I can break inside his dimension like Kakashi. I don't think that attacking him from the blind spot was possible due to his Senju cells, which could also probably help him sense it. Jinjutsu probably doesn't work on him either due to his strong soul powers. Then the only option is to trick him into teleporting something bad inside of his Kamui dimension, and then press him from 2 directions, both in this dimension, so that he has to teleport there where that waited for him. He probably has zero idea that I know the 100% of his abilities. That is my biggest advantage. Kamui isn't impossible to counter once you know all of its mechanics. Neji carefully started laying down his plans. He was not so hopeless inwardly anymore. At the same time, Obito, standing on the side, stroked a conversation with Kiyomi in a majestic tone of voice. He wanted to solicit her. Just now Karen outright rejected and even insulted him while Neji was silent. Obito then focused on Kiyomi and told her that he was actually her ancestor Madara Uchiha. He made a completely new story of his motivations and purpose. He also mentioned helping her revenge against Konoha, and mainly the stuff about the truth of the destruction of the Uchiha clan, that she was already aware of. What does it have to do with anything when the main culprit, Itachi, is in your organization currently? Kiyomi listened to his manipulation, and then she finally asked while looking at his black Akatsuki cloak full of irony. She knew really well how to judge people, due to all of her years on the run previously from the moment she was young. She was therefore sure that this mysterious person mixed up quite a number of lies in his story already now. She both wanted to delay some time for them while listening to him, but she was also inquisitive about his own perspective, and how it was different from Neji's regarding the destruction of her clan. However, Obito told her the exact same story of Itachi and Konoha, and their motivations as Neji did. Additionally, he didn't bring any way of powering herself up like Neji previously did if she joined him. Therefore, she was still sure of rejecting him. She was not blindsided by Neji like Karen. Even though he subtly tried to influence her during the last few months, she wasn't falling for it. She decided to reject this mysterious person's offer just because of gratitude, and that staying with Neji was more logical for her goals currently. After all, he really kept his promise of injecting her with Senju cells. Not to mention his new promise of Rinnegan. Neji was like a walking shinobi encyclopedia who seemed to know all kinds of unknown, ancient, and mysterious stuff in her mind. Itachi Uchiha. I could promptly relinquish him to you as a sign of goodwill right away. Obito answered candidly. Not only did Itachi probably report to Konoha as its informant in his mind secretly for years, but he was also terminally ill and pretty much weaker than Kiyomi. Obito knew perfectly well how powerful could someone with both the Mangekyou Sharingan and Senju cells become. His body was like functioning like that for many years too. It allowed you to harness your abilities massively and without any side effects. It was a formidable combination and a great match. That is all great, but when are you going to tell her that you also personally participated in that massacre of Uchiha clan on that day? You can't escape our Byakugan eyes. Our clan knew of your involvement right away. However, at this moment, Neji finally opened his mouth and interjected, as he already formulated a plan. He first made up the reason he knew about Obito's participation then. He decided to withhold the information on his true identity for now, and use it for later purposes. Therefore, he went along with his deception of being Madara Uchiha for now. Kiyomi turned to look at Neji in surprise, while Obito shifted his gaze to look at Neji dangerously. Obito was not keen on explaining his various deeds to others. Obito was not eager to explain his actions to others, and was caught off guard by Neji's knowledge of his involvement. But thinking about it more carefully, there were really many of the Hyuga clan members spying all over on that day, who could have spotted him and allowed Neji to find out. He thought that he was careful and that he avoided detection on that day, but it seemed that it wasn't the case now. At that time he helped Itachi to massacre his clans in hopes of recruiting him later. He was also in need of a bunch of Sharingan eyes that he could use for Izanagi later in his empty eye socket. He also needed to masquerade and present himself as Madara Uchiha during those times, to the world, and the man's hatred for the Uchiha clan, for siding with the Senju government against him, was a known fact. Seeing the masked person's silence, Kiyomi's face turned to fury next as she spat out venomously, "I'll kill you bastard and anyone else who was ever involved in that event." She regarded him as a life and death, mortal enemy now. Seeing this, Obito sighed. "You don't know who you're shouting against and challenging. You didn't have to die today alongside Neji Hyuga, however, you didn't cherish your life really well." Obito now got filled with killing intent for them, without exceptions. "We will see about who gets to die first," Neji's replied, his tone serious. Kiyomi and Karen who were beside him appeared normal currently, to the outside, however right in front of them was Neji's face that only they could see. It was another special ability of Tensugen, the telepathic communication. It was another non-fighting but really useful ability of Tensugen, just like the memory reading one. Toneri used it in that movie more extensively. Neji managed to figure out how this ability worked and harness it successfully just recently, during the last few months while they were on that island. He was now secretly passing his next plan to them on how to take him down. He was also inwardly a little taken aback that Kiyomi really wanted to verify the truthfulness of his information through Obito. He expected that he also conquered her already before like Karen, but he now understood that it wasn't the case. It seemed that Kiyomi was a much harder nut to crack. Unlike Karen, who basically fell in love from the moment she saw him the first time, and whom he just needed to give little affection to make her live and die for him, Kiyomi had a totally opposing personality. She had only strength and revenge in mind, and also appeared totally indifferent to those kinds of matters. As for why Neji was concerned with that, it was because he wanted to make her completely obedient like Karen, and better control her in that way. To be honest, even Neji's ego was harmed a little presently after realizing that he was so unsuccessful. After all that he went through for her, granting her various powers, compliments, occasional fondness, not to mention his good looks, she still didn't fall for him. Interesting, we will see later, but it also increased his determination for conquering her a bit. He didn't realize this, but his appreciation for her grew too. Obito and Neji's small group suddenly exchanged dangerous gazes for a moment. Once Obito was now certain that there was no hope for the recruitment of the two women following Neji, that there was no hope in persuading them further, so he was immediately prepared to strike the trio without more delay. He preferred to not give them any more time to recover their chakra. He decided to start from their weakest chain, the red-haired female, and he finally started acting. He decided to assault them all at the same time, from multiple directions, and then target Karen first with his short-range Kamui attack. Obito summoned his initial offensive, Fire Release. Great Fireball Technique. The user of this technique needs chakra in their body and turns it into the fire, which they then expel from their mouth to manipulate it in a form of an attack. The magnitude of the flames increases with the amount of chakra utilized for the jutsu. Sometimes the flames lack a distinct shape, being only a stream, but more often than not, they take the form of a giant orb that maintains its shape until hitting a target as now. Upon impact, the fireball is powerful enough to crater the ground and vaporize the surroundings. Against living targets, the fireball can cause extensive burns. It was one of the standard Uchiha clan jutsu, however, in Obito's hands it can become as destructive as a small meteor, especially now that he has recovered his other eye back. Fire Release. Firebird Phoenix Jutsu. However, Kiyomi suddenly took a step forward while weaving many hand signs, quickly producing a fire release attack of her own. She conjured a powerful fire-based technique that created a flaming bird, somehow resembling a phoenix, to collide with Obito's giant bright fire orb that almost seemed like a sun. This ninjutsu was her personal creation with the help of Neji and Karen. In fact, it was not a conventional fire release ninjutsu like the one her enemy used just now. It was instead also mixed with a bit of yang release in addition, allowing it to constantly regenerate like a real phoenix of Neji's past life, and also feast on other fire release techniques. It was much smaller than Obito's attack, however, it shouldn't be underestimated for it. However, after firing off that giant destructive orb made of flames, Obito didn't stop there, and at the same second, he promptly entered his Kamui portal. He then appeared somewhere behind them next, and launched another obliterating ninjutsu attack of his, Wood Release. Wood Dragon Technique. The user of this ninjutsu creates a gigantic wooden dragon, which they can use for a multitude of purposes, including restraining a target, or for offensive purposes. It also has the ability to absorb chakra from its target, slowly rendering them unable to use techniques by biting into the target, and draining them almost in a vampiric fashion. Wood. This is a Wood Release, and he knows that same exact move. Karen was the first one who sensed it, and she was the one to respond first this time too. After awakening her own Wood Release, Karen also somehow got a bit of spiritual memory of some of the strongest techniques that the Nukage Genkai of her could make. That one included Wood Release. Wood Dragon Technique. Therefore, she mimicked it. Obito was a little surprised that both of his ninjutsu attacks got neutralized so quickly. However, he anticipated something along those lines. He used them just as feints in the first place. And now the black-haired girl was standing a few steps further than the other two, while Karen was turned in his direction, and to their back. Therefore he sprang into action and teleported right next to her, by instantly hopping between his Kamui dimension and that place, just as he planned. She was his first target out of the three now. It all transcribed in a few seconds, and his portal appeared right in front of Karen. However, he was dumbfounded afterward. The red-haired female, in front of him now, had some kind of a solid blue layer of chakra all over her body, in addition to some kind of black Fuinjutsu markings inscribed on top of it. She looked at him cockily. What in hell is that chakra armor? It looks like barrier ninjutsu mixed in with Fuinjutsu. I can't touch that or it would be bad. How did she manage to react to my speed? It's crazy, Obito thought in shock. His speed was difficult to even Minato Namikaze, who was the fastest person ever, and also had a space-time jutsu. This is one of the most valuable techniques of my late clan. It is the barrier ninjutsu and Fuinjutsu blended in a transcendent way for close body protection. Try to touch me and you'll get sealed away instantly. The only drawback of the said technique was that the user couldn't move while he had it activated due to all the careful chakra control and Fuinjutsu monitoring it required to operate. However, Karen didn't have to tell him that. Therefore, she just smirked and continued, while already summoning her adamantine sealing chains to attack her opponent. And, as for how I managed to react to you, it is because I sensed you way before you even exited your portal right in front of me. At the first sign of your spatial ninjutsu around here I noticed it and activated that armor. After all, your portals are still created with chakra. It is done with a very mysterious kind of chakra, but it is still a chakra. And I can sense any kind of chakra through my Kagura's Mind Eyes ability. Karen confidently explained while moving her chains underground in order to encircle Obito. She also placed them all over this entire area, in order to make it difficult for him to transport somewhere again. As soon as did that, her chains would await him there, and would aim to strike him instantly. Her other most powerful jutsu, the Death Repair Seal, was unsuitable for this kind of speed battle. At this moment, Neji also turned around and looked at Karen, who also had her eyes closed in order to make Obito use of Jinjutsu on her impossible. Well, she could react quickly enough to protect herself. However, there is no way for her to attack him back as Minato Namikaze could do. Neji thought while also reflecting on her otherworldly sensing ability. Due to her Kagura's Mind Eye, she now has the best sensing quality in the whole world. Tobirama Senju had a much wider sensing range than her. Judging from the original, however, he probably wouldn't be able to catch that attack now. Her sensing quality is probably already around the Sage Mode level, Neji marveled. She reminded himself once again how good his decision to recruit her truly was. She could now fight against Sharingan just like Kabuto in the original, with her eyes closed. It was on that level. He was also satisfied with her battle sense and fighting intelligence. She was, after all, really trained by Orochimaru before. Not to mention, spending all that time with Neji during the last few months. Interesting, but I don't need to touch you in order to deal with you. Why would you think that? Obito mused at this, feeling unfazed. He also thought inwardly. Also, with that sensing ability of hers, she could probably dodge my long-range version of Kamui twisting attack on time. However, in this close range, she can't dodge it. Barely anyone in the world can unless. And it was just as Obito thought. While he converged his spatial attack right on one of Karen's arms next, she was suddenly moved away by Neji's gravity, while Kiyomi accelerated its speed, allowing her to barely dodge it on time. Good tactic, however. Do you have that much chakra to waste it like that by protecting her all the time? Obito immediately realized that if they were to keep that up, they would simply drain their chakra, and he would finish them all at that time, and emerge victorious. Neji, for example, had the Tensogen chakra mode, and could evade and even counterattack against Obito's dimensional hopping, even without getting to sense it beforehand, in such a way as Karen could due to his sheer speed provided by the Tensogen. While Kiyomi could just slow time on Obito while increasing it on herself and dodging it like that. Karen was the only one who couldn't dodge out of the three, and Obito prepared to exploit that fact to the utmost. But, even without having to worry about Karen, they would have still been dealt with by Obito after they exhaust all of their chakra before him. It was just that in Obito's current plan, they would be defeated even sooner. However, Karen's bodily armor wasn't all that useless. Actually, even faster than Obito's long-range and close-range Kamui twisting attack was the twisting attack while he held his victim physically. That kind of attack, no one in the world could dodge now that he has two eyes at the same time. As for why Obito only did those kinds of twisting attacks on his target's body parts, instead of sucking them completely, was that he didn't want to face even the slightest risk of someone getting into his Kamui dimension, and defeating him there because he effectively couldn't use his intangibility then. Additionally, by creating portals only on his target's body parts, he could then destroy them entirely. He could even do it on his opponent's head, however, it's just that it allowed more room for escape. However, at this time, realizing his plan, Kiyomi manifested her giant black Susanoo in its armored stage, in an instant, and then moved to another place, while Neji and Karen still remained in their original position. Then, all of a sudden, Karen's expression became intense and perspired. She moved her hands swiftly in a way of hand signs, and a giant creature was being created under their feet, while Neji protected her and stood right on top of its head as well. Wood release. Wood human technique. It was one of Hashirama's strongest wood jutsu in the original series, and not even Obito's wood release was advanced enough to perform it. It was even used by Hashirama in his fight with Madara. The user of this technique creates an enormous statue-like creature out of wood. That humanoid creature with a full body and an Oni-like face was usually manifested with a wooden dragon wrapped around its torso, and is generally used in battle as an avatar. The wooden dragon can be multiplied and be used to attack its enemies directly as well. It could even truly catch an uncompressed, uncharged, standard tailed beast ball fired by a tailed beast when summoned by Hashirama. It was obviously weaker in all the other parameters than the one utilized by Hashirama. Karen and Neji then quickly retreated inside of it, guarded by many smaller wooden roots and trees, while Kiyomi was also well nested inside of her giant Susanoo, which held that massive scythe with it attacked out. Kiyomi and Karen used their largest moves simultaneously, in order to make it more dangerous for Obito to transport toward them. And not just that, Karen still commanded numerous chains of hers in the underground from inside the wood golem. Her 50% of chakra left was much larger than Kiyomi's, and even Neji's in absolute terms, so she could accomplish those kinds of demanding feats. Obito looked at all of this and mused, why waste chakra, what are you plotting? This is an impressive technique. It seems that infusing in Uzumaki with Senju cells produces a way superior wood release to the one I currently possess. Obito thought while first looking at Karen's golem. Then he turned his gaze to Kiyomi, who was inside of her Susanoo, and spoke, already at this stage. Then I'm really regretful that I have to kill you today. However, as your ancestor, I'm proud of you. And if you want to play this kind of game, then let's play it. Kiyomi and Karen were stunned as they got aware of the big buildup of energy all around Obito, as he also manifested his Susanoo, of a similar size as Kiyomi's one. There was another armored Susanoo, this one silver in color, however. It was a stage that he finally acquired recently after a period of exercising it hard in the methods left to him by Madara. He knew that this was the second strongest state, only behind the perfect Susanoo. That is why he was fascinated by that young girl even more for awakening it alone. So, no perfect Susanoo yet. It seems that Kakashi could use it in the original, only because of the 6 paths power Obito gave him at that time. After his contact with the 10 tails, Neji evaluated it. Simultaneously, deep within the same woodland, but a little further away from the epicenter of the fight, Konoha's current strongest shinobi, and also the members of Tsunade's faction, converged to witness the fight and intervene if necessary. At first, they braced themselves to pursue Neji and his allies. However, the pursuit was interrupted when another odd intruder stopped Neji and his allies to seemingly engage in a battle against them. For that reason, they also stopped following them and retreated nearby in order to monitor further developments. But then they watched in shock as those two massive mountain-sized, demonic-looking Susanoos, of silver and black colors, and the legendary wooden golem of their village's founder, Hashirama Senju, stood on two opposing sides. Tsunade even rubbed her eyes while little feeling dumbfounded by the spectacle, especially after seeing one of her grandfather's most formidable wooden creations. She thought that she would never see it again in this life. She truly wondered once again what in the hell was going on with the current ninja world. Thankfully they started fighting outside the village. She suddenly blurted out in relief, still feeling stunned by the scene in front of her. That clash of giants could now be seen from anywhere inside the forest. She also just hoped those people got exhausted by one another. I hope this out of blue wood release user doesn't have anything to do with my clan, or else it will be quite difficult. Tsunade gritted her teeth. After all, that person, supposedly female, already got on Neji's boat for some reason, and helped him carry out that offense that effectively ended the Hyuga clan previously, even if he wasn't directly at fault. It was an immeasurable loss for the village. She also didn't expect there to be even another unknown Mangekyou Sharingan user, and an Uchiha member, outside that person with Silver Susanoo who previously stole Kakashi's Sharingan, and who was suspected to actually be notorious Madara Uchiha from the past. The situation for them was getting worse by the day. When she came back to become the Hokage, she wasn't expecting any of it. Sometimes she even wondered if was she actually strong enough for that function despite being one of the Sanins. But then she remembered that she was just merely holding that position for someone who really was strong enough. Strong enough to defend Konoha from anything. And that person was Naruto, who had both the potential and fortitude to guide Konoha through this storm. I told you all many times before that this is not the same ninja world that we were used to seeing during all of our lives. It is vastly different now, and we can't stagnate now, or we will be done for. Tsunade, our titles of Sanin mean nothing now. The whole fate of this world got distorted and inverted for some inexplicable reason. More individuals like them will emerge in the future. Jiraiya reiterated the words of the giant toad sage, again with conviction. He was confident that all of those recent unexpected appearances and abilities were linked to that phenomenon. That was why he also persuaded and urged Tsunade before to let a Mamite guy always stay in the village unlike before. The threat was significant enough that even he, such a free spirit, decided to stay in. His hands were currently clasped tight, and he was already entering the sage mode, preparing for the big impending conflict, with the winner of the current match of giants in front of them all. Both sides were Konoha's enemies currently. And, even though he previously regarded Neji as the child of prophecy, now there was no going back for him after the destruction of the Hyuga clan, and Jiraiya realized that it was useless to argue with Tsunade and others over that. He could only hope the world doesn't get destroyed over something like that. He was not moving now, therefore he could gather natural energy himself without the assistance of the two Toad Elders. When he wants to enter it while in a fight when he wasn't staying still, he must summon them in order to help him. It's time to finally test my new skills and put them in a real battle. And that person, I will get my revenge and my left eye back. Kakashi watched it as well, while clenching his fists in silent fury and determination. On his face, however, there was a new eye now. Tsunade finally cultivated it out of cells and gave it to him recently. His strength progressed by leaps and bounds, even if he was the weakest out of these four people. He finally integrated his purple lighting and Haddock Kinjutsu. He was by his estimates already on the middle cage level of strength. Already stronger than he was before his eye got robbed away. Neji Hyuga, or that mysterious person, I will never let you get away. He wanted to deal with the so-called Madara out of revenge and Neji Hyuga for humiliating Konoha multiple times already. And he wanted to protect this village for which Rin and Obito gave their lives in the past. And not just them, even his father, his mentor Minato, all laid their lives for it. Might Guy sighed emotionally once again. Is it you, Neji? Guy, he is not your past student now anymore. Don't be lenient toward him in any way. If you get a chance to kill, then eliminate him. Tsunade reminded him once again. Kakashi and Jiraiya, however, looked at Guy with more sympathy because they were both in similar situations regarding Orochimaru and Sasuke. After a few moments, Guy compassed himself while thinking seriously. Neji, just how far have you come? And didn't you promise me that you would never harm Konoha in any way before? Why are you coming back now? That wasn't enough for you. Must you kill your own uncle as well to feel better? I really misjudged you before. Guy clenched his fists hard. He didn't expect Neji to attack the Hyuga clan again. It was really extensive in his opinion. Hiashi was the last member of the main branch. And now the whole clan got destroyed because of him. Only one person, Hinata Hyuga, remained alive. Neji's behavior really went against Guy's moral compass a long time ago already. Tsunade also sighed. This was a cage-level battle from her viewpoint. She learned her lessons since the last time they fought against Neji, and that other attacker later in addition. That's why she only brought these four with her this time. Tsunade now understood that numbers were useless against such extraordinary individuals, or at least numbers below a certain level were, for example, below the cage level. She let some of her people inside the village keep an eye on Danzo as well. It was the first time she issued such a command since she became the Hokage. It was a show of how divided the village became recently. Shizune managed the situation there. Well, she also tasked Yamato of the Anbu to prevent Naruto from going berserk and joining this battle in the first place. At that time, when Anbu members suddenly came closer and reported to Tsunade, Lady Hokage, the finest barrier ninjutsu experts of the village have been assembled, and they started working on that barrier you specified around those parameters. Tsunade nodded in satisfaction and signaled him to fall back again. They planned that barrier, made in cooperation with a dozen of shinobi, in order to trap the winner of this matchup in front of them, who would have probably been exhausted from their earlier fight during that time. However, all of them suddenly turned vigilant as they sensed an unidentified group from Konoha's route suddenly getting closer to them. Their leader was black-haired Sai. He also started speaking respectfully to Tsunade after nodding to the other three as well. Lady Hokage, Lord Danzo is very concerned about these few dangerous people and the big threat they represent to our village, therefore, he decided to lend a helping hand next. He dispatched a group of these 10 people who are willing to sacrifice their lives in order to neutralize this threat with more certainty. All you need to do is allow them to remain within your barrier, and they will act at the appropriate moment. The safety of the village is of utmost importance to Lord Danzo, Sai explained with 10 people really standing behind him in silence. But all of them seemed lifeless and empty. They were all ready to perform a secret seal for the route and the village. All 4 people inside the Tsunade's group gasped in surprise for a bit. They never expected even for Danzo to help. Tsunade's expression however turned disgusted, but then she looked at the massive giants on the other side, hence she eventually swallowed back her words and reluctantly agreed, well, if Danzo himself could temporarily suspend his prejudices and the animosity against me, and reveal such secret hole cards, then I should as well. Tsunade glanced aside then and just silently nodded a bit without words. Sai sighed in relief inwardly and instructed them to move. He was also going to stay inside the barrier to make sure those people carried their tasks with success. His own Lord Danzo was really concerned by this group of people. He even let his anger and other emotions slip up for a bit. They were previously carefully groomed by Danzo for many years already in order to perform the reverse 4 symbol sealing, Jutsu, on one of Danzo's difficult enemies if a need arose. The reverse 4 symbols sealing was a powerful Jutsu activated only upon the user's death. The user must, beforehand, place the seal across their chest. Upon activation, it releases 4 symbols from the user's own blood that then forms a large black sphere around them. Anything caught inside the sphere's area is then drawn in and sealed within the user's corpse. Danzo himself could perform that technique as well, but why would he ever have to do that himself, while he has such brainwashed followers in the hundreds? It was just that for someone to learn to apply and use that technique in battle, he needed an enormous talent in Jutsu, making it only 10 of them now. Back at the scene of the fight, Kiyomi's Susanoo suddenly slashed its side forward onto Obito's Susanoo at lightning speed, amplified by Kiyomi's overexerted eyes which were spinning rapidly. Various dragons on the back of the neck of Karen's gigantic wood golems also sprang into action. Have you lost your mind? Why were you burning all that chakra for? Obito pondered while feeling unfazed by their attacks coming onto him. His Susanoo immediately pulled up a dozen of Kamui's shuriken, its unique weapons, shooting them right over at the dragons, the scythe, and their battle avatars as well. They warped into Kamui's dimension and destroyed everything that they touched. Large chunks of their battle avatars were decimated, however, Obito's Susanoo got ensnared by one of Karen's wooden colossal dragons in front as well, while Kiyomi's scythe also inflicted it multiple cuts in various places. However, Obito suddenly looked up above himself and opened his eyes a little in surprise. Silver Wheel Reincarnation Explosion Ring. Above him, Neji flew in azure blue light, while also making a flashing attack of silver light. It looked like some dark fireworks on this very bright day. Neji made his attack small as rain this time with his improvement of this technique. He could now perform and keep up and sustain this kind of barrage for a while. The rain obliterated anything it touched and wreaked havoc on the ground. Above him stood Neji with his attack. Karen's chains caught his Susanoo from the underground, while Karen and Kiyomi now assaulted him in 2 directions with their avatars. Obito suddenly found himself being pressed in literally every direction. That rain is the most dangerous. It definitely isn't ordinary. It is made of some kind of otherworldly material. No, it is a chakra nature. A few hits of those and I'm done for is it their final hope. They want to test and see if my intangibility has a time limit to it. They want to defeat me in that way. So, uninspired, Obito contemplated while still intact inside his avatar. He knew that it was the most standard response. He was somehow expecting a bigger challenge from those 3 people. Well, my limit should be around 10 minutes, now that I have both eyes. However, I can't take a risk. What if something unexpected happens? What if they bring something else to the table? Or what if Konoha joins the fray against me for some reason? After 10 minutes I can't use it for a while then, it would be bad. Let's end this in another way. Obito essentially had 2 choices now. One was to wait for them to spend all of their chakra and die on their own, while he turned intangible to survive against those attacks for a while now, but it was a riskier way in his opinion. And the other option was to attack instead of defend and go for them instead, right away. Due to his personality, and careful and a bit proud nature, he was leaning to choose the second option now. He was proud and confident of his attacking ability, and thought that it would be easy to deal with them to be specific. He also couldn't dodge all of those relentless attacks by just teleporting somewhere else in the area, because they were simply too fast for that. He could either turn intangible or start transporting to their faces and killing them right away. And after deciding what he was going to go for firmly, he immediately went for their weakest link, the red-haired girl. His large Susanoo suddenly vanished from the scene, and Obito teleported right in front of the giant wood golem with his kamui. He suddenly manifested his Susanoo right away in an instant once again. However, it was only a stage with 2 arms this time. He used it just to rip the giant's stomach open with them at the exact same moment. Here you are, let's die. And after clearing the space, he instantly prepared to activate his close-range kamui twisting ability on her torso once again. This time you can't escape it, woman. Karen stood there as if frozen in place, panicked and perspired all over. She appeared to be caught off guard and helpless. However, as Karen was about to get hit with his attack, and the menacing portal slowly formed on her body, Obito suddenly noticed Neji's attack from above halting, and then Neji himself appeared right behind him ready to strike instead, so fast. He's giving his all this time. Neji was still in his previous blue Tensogen chakra mode, but was now rapidly churning through his chakra to get more speed. Why do you want to protect this girl so much when you are all going to die anyway, now that you are about to lose all of your chakra? Obito was a little bit perplexed as he turned intangible to take on Neji's fierce offensive of punches and kicks. However, he suddenly noticed Neji's weird facial grin out of blue. Neji's youthful but also masculine face now looked at Obito quite playfully. "Oh no, you tricked me." Obito exclaimed in pain as his body suddenly got badly burned, chalked, and blackened all over for some unexplainable reason. His flash was being damaged and seen in various places. It even smelled like some burned meat. His entire skin was looking like it was peeled off from some kind of fierce explosion. His mouth had a metallic feeling of blood, and he doesn't remember when he ever felt this much pain. His intangibility betrayed him for the first time today. Ned simply chuckled at the sight. That was all part of the plan he devised and relayed to Karen and Kiyomi at the beginning of this fight. Thus now Karen stealthily sealed her shadow clone on a small piece of paper with her Fuinjutsu, and then let it fall into Obito's dimension right then, while he was distracted by Neji's final assault and the barrage of attacks, while also trying to twist and destroy her body with his portal, and maneuver it all simultaneously. She expertly performed the whole inscription from behind her coat. She managed to create the shadow clone so sneakily because she concealed her chakra aura really well. Her understanding of chakra auras and concealment was even higher than Neji's and unparalleled. She simply understood chakra very intimately and on a higher level. They also did it now, as opposed to in the opening moments of their fight, because Obito was less vigilant and wary of that move at that time, and he also thought that he figured out Neji's strategy of attempting to defeat him by figuring out and exploiting his intangibility timer. But it was actually just used by Neji in order to dupe him for this. Nearly all of Obito's body parts were sent into his dimension, one at a time, in those few moments, in order to escape from Neji's previous barrage of fast attacks, and got brutalized while there. He realized what was going on and immediately brought it all back. However, then in addition to those burns, he ate a few punches and kicks of Neji, severing his bones and even one arm from his body, before he transported his entire being into that dimension this time. His mask was half torn from one of Neji's punches into it, and his face looked vile, while looking at the red-haired girl in front of him. He never expected this weakest point of their team to trick him and pulverize him like that with her explosive shadow clones prepared for him as soon as he went in. "I will kill you, bitch," he spat. Never in a million years would he have imagined that someone could defeat his kamui in that way. Moreover, doing so while seeing his ability for the first time without any preparation. Even though he was maddened, he still felt a trace of astonishment for Neji, whom he thought created that plan. "This is probably a clone of yours. Well, I don't know how I didn't manage to sense you. But you're weaker than me either way. Once I deal with this clone here, I will destroy you all outside." Obito thought that she sent a clone, because if she moved her real body here, there would be no way out. However, Karen's clone just giggled in a creepy way before Obito suddenly sensed a giant god of death, appearing right above her and then rushing toward him. Oh no. What the foo? He instantly escaped to the outside world once again. He knew about the death repair seal very well, and he was sure that that one wasn't an illusion. Even though he failed to understand how could a clone create it in the first place. But that didn't stop him from getting out of there expressly to be sure. He thereafter reappeared a little further away from the mall in the real world. He was now holding on to the place that was now empty where his arm used to be while gasping hard. "Neji Hyuga, I will pay you back for this. You will all regret this. Don't be happy yet. Have fun with Konoha's people first. You barely have any chakra left. Hahaha." Obito laughed for the first time in decades and suddenly vanished entirely next. He teleported back inside his dimension, and then instantly to another country entirely before Karen's clone managed to catch him with the death repair seal. It would soon deflate on its own after consuming all of its predefined chakra on that advanced jutsu. "Neji, Kiyomi, nearly 100 shinobi are constructing a large barrier around us right now. They are from Konoha," Karen shouted urgently all of a sudden. Her large golem was destroyed by Obito, and she also withdrew her chains, with Kiyomi doing the same thing with her Susanoo. Neji also turned off his Tensogen chakra mode while sensing the situation outside. His expression turned serious once again, and he wasn't all that happy about defeating Obito anymore. He certainly hasn't anticipated for Konoha to plan to create that kind of barrier in the meantime, and there was more. We have only around a quarter of our chakra left now, so we need to think a way out of this one too. Neji thought critically. Well, my truth-seeking balls are stronger than any kind of chakra, including this barriers. I have 1 more minute of Tensogen chakra mode left, and just enough chakra for a small truth-seeking orb. Will I have it open? I must play it smart because it means there's only one chance to escape this barrier. Kiyomi, Karen, great job today. Thank you for everything today. Here's how we're going to escape now. Neji spoke to these 2 girls while also looking them warmly. If not for their help, he would have certainly died today after going for Hiashi. Obito probably doesn't know just how extraordinary those orbs are, hence he thought that Konoha would get me for sure this time. That barrier is nothing in comparison to it. Maybe Black Zetsu didn't tell him yet. Neji pondered again while whispering with Karen and Kiyomi, noticing other developments from Konoha's side near their position. There were now even giant frogs appearing. Truth-seeking balls could disintegrate and erase any kind of charka, human bodies, or even human souls that they touch. It was a Faveniture transformation combined release plus yin and yang. In addition to that, the only way that someone could counter it was if they had access to some kind of Senjutsu chakra, or were able to wield them as well. Neji's Tensogen allowed him to summon them with ease. And unlike Obito, Madara, and Naruto who could only summon a fixed amount of orbs in the original, Neji didn't have a limit. The only limit was his chakra. He could also easily shape them. Kagaya Otsutsuki was even going to destroy an entire dimension with them by extending them out. A few moments later, inside a cave somewhere in the land of fire, Obito suddenly knelt on his knees while uncontrollably spitting out blood. Obito, what happened to you? Complete Zetsu's voice suddenly shouted anxiously. Even Black Zetsu was completely anxious. He was not pretending in the slightest bit. God knows how more difficult his and his mother's plans would have become if Obito suddenly died for some reason. Whereas, White Zetsu was more genuinely concerned just for him. You went out to eliminate Neji Hyuga and his 2 newfound allies. What happened there, Obito? Black Zetsu quickly probed. He was not liking this development in the slightest bit. Was Neji even stronger than he previously thought? Then he would have to strengthen and use more fodders against him in the future, who was stronger than we thought. Neji Hyuga. His allies. Did Konoha intervene? Black Zetsu continued to ask questions. Obito suddenly gazed at him and then snarled dangerously, why are you so concerned? Black Zetsu suddenly turned surprised that he lashed out at himself now. Did he happen to realize something? However, Obito's next words suddenly cleared his doubts. You're just Madara's will, and I am no Madara. You're of no use to me at all. Why do I even have to keep you in the first place? You're nowhere near as strong as Neji's people. You just know how to advise me on what to do and what not all my life. Keep it down with that or I might really send you away. Or bring me some kind of help already. Obito continued his agitated speech. He was really angry today. If he had a few capable and competent allies as well, maybe it would have gone differently today. He never liked this Black Zetsu at all, to be honest. And after getting his other eye back, he totally threw out the possibility of him ever reviving the real Madara in the future. He was kind of drunk on his own power, only he could bring salvation to this world and no one else. And as Black Zetsu was Madara's will, he was also his adversary. It was just that he kept him around because he knew many unknown things and sometimes gave good advice. And he felt like he could deal with him right away if he wanted to because he wasn't strong at all. He was not even on a cage level, and that was in combination with his white partner. Black Zetsu's dark shadowy face was expressionless after he turned silent after Obito's words, but inside he was boiling with anger. This inferior puppet. Wait till I activate that seal on you, and humiliate you, once all the tailed beasts get gathered together for Madara to take. I would then revive him to kill you in pleasure before using him for my mother. He needed Madara, Rinnegan, the God Tree, the infinite Tsukiyomi, himself, and the tailed beasts, all must follow in line one by one for his mother's resurrection. Even just a vessel made of only Hagoromo's side of descendants could be enough to revive Kagaya. That's why he previously didn't focus too much on Hamura's side who were far away on the moon. However, now that they had intervened, he needed to deal with them first, in order to prevent them from jeopardizing his plans later on. Those 2 people were now his first targets nowadays. He felt like only people of such superb ancestry could bring him any trouble. He was in fact made out of Kagaya's creation of all things, yin-yang release, and he carried her consciousness, will, and spiritual power. He was also a part of Kagaya's chakra, her son, and her personal creation. In modern terms, he was her jutsu. And he needed to recover all the world's chakra to make her into one being once again. She had to resort to creating him instead of relying on her clan's karma seal, because she wasn't killed by her 2 sons. She was just sealed away inside one of her dimensions, because they either weren't strong enough to kill her or knew of her karma abilities. They wanted to revive her later through a creative sutsufication process, not the real one. For that purpose, for centuries he plotted in various ways. He would first approach Indra alone periodically, goading him with praises and curiosity towards Indra's true potential, even going so far as to say he could rival if not surpass the Sage of Six Paths, his father, Hamura Otsutsuki, himself. When Hamura later named his younger son, Asura, as the new leader of their ancient religion, Ninshu, he tempted Indra to go to war with his younger brother for the title. He realized that Sharingan's users were really too extreme and easy to manipulate, due to some unexplained genetic factors, at that time, and later exploited it through the ages. He decided that Indra's descendants, the Uchiha, would be the main cast of the shinobi history he was creating, and also modified Hagoromo's tablet to claim that among other things, the infinite Tsukuyomi would be the Uchiha's salvation. Over the centuries, it manipulated the two brothers' reincarnations in an attempt to get one to awaken the Rinnegan, like fusing Madara with Hashirama's cells, giving him ideas of the 10 tales from that stone tablet, and he also recorded many events for Kagaya's use when she rewoke. Anyway, Konoha will probably deal with them right now, or they are already dead. Obito calmed himself down after White Zetsu infused him with his healing cells on his request just now. He finally started reiterating to them what had been transcribed back there. But the more Black Zetsu heard, the more incredulous he became. That idiot was so stronger than them, not to mention they were half weakened by that Hyuga's patriarch, and this idiot still lost. It was a tremendous mistake. He was given this duty by Madara. Not only is he so disobedient, but he is also that dumb too. Obito, however, didn't catch on to his thoughts, and he continued speaking tiredly. Anyway, I had to really run back there, or I could have really died. If that person survives, he is going to bring a calamity to our plans later. I must go after him once again as soon as I recover if he escapes from Konoha this time, and that time, this trick won't work on me again anymore, Obito thought dangerously. He already regarded Neji Hyuga as a way more intelligent and sharper person than even his sensei, Minato Namikaze. Minato, at that time, didn't figure out his ability mechanics to that extent, not even close. Other supposed people of that same kind, like Itachi and Kakashi, whom Obito knew, couldn't take a candle to him. That kind of ingenuity, tactical sense, and intellect was unmatched. But, I have to thank you, Neji. You allowed me to figure out such a glaring hole inside my battle tactics. I didn't lose anything by confronting you, even if I technically lost. Now there isn't going to be anyone else, in the future, who could exploit that vulnerability ever again as you did. However, if it was done in a different situation, by someone else, then maybe I could have really perished and met my demise. Obito thought objectively about the matter. He now understood his exact weakness, and even how to deal with it once and for all. It could be even considered a gift for many shinobi. He also felt generally a bit more humbled as a shinobi, and he felt like he needed that after getting such a power-up previously overnight in a form of his other eye, White Zetsu. Make hundreds of clones slowly. They are going to be nested inside of my Kamiya dimension from now on. Obito spoke again. The solutions to hardest problems are always the easiest ones. How did I not think of this before? Obito presently realized that he also needed to step up his essential tactical game too, so, he is not really an idiot, huh? Maybe it was just that guy's lucky day. Black Zetsu also thought. After Obito escaped from that endless woodland around the village, Konoha's shinobi on the scene got more assertive, and probably came really close to Neji and his group, in a way of narrowing the barrier. Jireya's 3 giant toads already cut off nearly all directions of escaping. Kakashi and Might Guy were on top of the 2 of them as well as Jireya, who was on the 3rd, and who was also now in his imperfect sage mode, full of toad physical characteristics, and with 2 toad elders also on his shoulders. That's how he got the abnormal amount of chakra required to summon those 3 in the first place. Their names were Gamabunta, Gamakin, and Gamahiro. Each of these strongest toads had its own set of appearance, personality, weapons, and fighting styles. Additionally, Tsunade suddenly bit her own finger and summoned another colossal creature beneath her feet as well. It was a giant slug Kasaya. Neji, and the 2, therefore quickly found themselves in a sandwich of giant beasts inside the erected blue barrier. This barrier even had a bottom layer to it manifested, and it was hidden underground. Above them currently also circled size painting birds, carrying a group of 10 people. Neji, I can also get us out of that barrier, I just need some time. I need to figure out its chakra characteristics up close, and then penetrate and subvert it with my own chakra. Karen suddenly interjected while looking at the large blue barrier in front of them and the 4 massive creatures. She was also now proficient in barrier ninjutsu, and knew how to counter it. Those people up above flying on those strange birds also give me a very eerie feeling, Karen added, while still having energy left. There was Sai on top of his art-like creations alongside 10 more people from the Konoha's route. Karen looked the least drawn out of the 3 due to her Uzumaki constitution. Kiyomi's eyes were red and overexerted, while Neji experienced a little mental fatigue, and his body also got weary. There's no need, Karen, I have a better way. Kiyomi, on my signal, I'm entering my Tensegan chakra mode again, you're increasing my speed, and then we're breaking through the barrier's bottom layer underground of us, thus leaving them all in the dust outside of it. I'm worried that Tsunade also sensed something already. I'll carry you too, and we're going to those coordinates of the Hyuga Tensogen the faster we can. Kiyomi and Karen both suddenly noticed Neji's face telepathically communicating with them, even though he was right beside them, because enemies got even closer by this time. Kiyomi and Karen nodded in understanding, while Neji suddenly glanced at the arrivals. More people are coming this way from the village's direction, that Yamato Guy, Naruto, Hinata, Lee and Tenten. Neji suddenly noticed them, with a bitter taste in his mouth, while looking over with his ocular vision and sensing ability. Today he additionally planned to take Tenten with him. However, he couldn't gamble like that anymore in this situation. Previously he left her inside the Konoha because he thought that it would be much safer for her to be there than to follow along, because he knew the plot, and that Konoha would be a safe place, at least until a certain point later. Nevertheless, once more, he stupidly forgot to include the butterfly effect, which he brought into this world, during that calculation. Toneri, when he invaded Konoha previously, could have easily murdered Tenten or at least taken her out as a hostage to deal with himself later. Thankfully, he didn't realize their romantic connection at that time, didn't even think of that, or simply rejected that possibility due to his pride. Tenten, I will be back soon, Neji made a mental promise to her. Neji Hyuga, and 2 unknown accomplices beside, better surrender yourself to Konoha now the easy way. Tsunade, on top of one of her own mountain-sized summon, Kasayu, shouted in a firm manner. However, inwardly, she was shocked to find that the black-haired in front really had the Mangekyou Sharingan, while the other girl, who could also use the nearly extinct wood release, also had long red hair like her own grandmother. This spells trouble. She was now so close to them that she could directly see it. Tsunade's forehead started glowing from its center in her yin seal. She knew that Neji could strike and kill her at any time now due to his abnormal speed, therefore, she was prepared to regenerate any damage in advance. And releasing that seal also gave her an overall big physical boost in strength and speed. Mystical-looking black marks suddenly started spreading out all over her body instantly. That seal was the centerpiece of her attacking abilities, as her medical ninjutsu generally wasn't used for fighting, outside of that nerve-tempering technique. Yin Sealer, the strength of 100 seal, was the greatest chakra storage seal in existence. It is formed by using extremely delicate chakra control to continuously amass chakra into that seal for many years. One focuses a portion of their chakra into the shape of a sealing formula on their forehead at regular intervals to store it within the developing seal. Therefore only the shinobi with the highest chakra control could consider ever learning it. It was a grade S-class Yunjutsu technique. Once the seal reaches its full capacity, it appears as a diamond-shaped marking engraved upon the user's forehead, as it becomes a permanent part of the bearer's chakra system. The seal's shape was inspired by the markings Tsunade's grandmother wore, and was once a symbol of the Uzumaki clan. As the culmination of years of gathering chakra, it contains a truly vast amount that surpasses what even the most powerful shinobi could possibly produce at once, and its name symbolizes how it contains the chakra of 100 versions of themselves, metaphorically speaking. Although this chakra is intended for creation rebirth, it is not restricted to this, and can be used as fuel for any ninjutsu. One can share the seal's chakra with another individual to provide them with chakra far beyond their normal limits, or induce creation rebirth within their body for life-saving treatment. Tsunade in fact learned to use the strength of 100 seal, in conjunction with her slug summon, Kasayu, to create the immense healing network. By channeling her medical chakra through Kasayu's clones, she is able to transfer it to whoever they are attached to heal their wounds, and restore their stamina without being physically present there. It was an extension of her medicine. Once all of the chakra within the seal has been exhausted, the seal vanishes from sight. It will then automatically draw on chakra from the bearer's body to replenish itself until its diamond marking reappears. However, unlike when the seal is first created, it does not need to be filled to its full capacity to be restored, and the bearer can channel as much chakra into the seal as they desire. The creation rebirth is most often used after releasing the yin seal. It was another technique that uses a vast amount of chakra in order to stimulate all proteins in the body, and accelerate cell division to rebuild them, allowing it to regenerate practically any body part when injured or destroyed. Flesh and muscle are regrown, bones knit back together, nerves are remade, and blood is replenished. Even organs can be completely rebuilt and functioning when destroyed, and amputated limbs are restored back again. Unlike ordinary medical ninjutsu, which can only repair cells, making cells regenerate is a far superior type of healing. One who wields this ninjutsu in battle was nearly impossible to kill. Tsunade was inspired by her grandfather Senju Hashirama's unique ability to rapidly recover from injuries without needing hand seals. Creation Rebirth itself is intended as a short-lived ninjutsu that is activated to regenerate all of the wounds that Tsunade has suffered in battle, and then stops once the body has been restored to its normal state. It was a healing peak. However, cells are only able to divide a finite number of times in one's lifespan, so speeding up cell division allows them to survive immediate lethal injuries, while shortening their life in the long term. Thus, the more numerous and severe the injuries one suffers while using Creation Rebirth, then the closer one ultimately come to death. Moreover, regenerating wounds so quickly strains the body, which can render it weak and slow as soon as the ninjutsu ends, potentially leaving the user vulnerable. Unfortunately, the amount of chakra required to activate such an extreme level of healing would exhaust almost anyone to death. To overcome this, Tsunade invented the Yin Seal. And finally, there was another, the final stage for the creation rebirth, called the creation rebirth. Strength of 100 technique. By releasing the strength of 100 seal in its entirety and maintaining its presence, its immense chakra infuses every cell in her body to enact an ongoing regenerative effect, which allows her to receive all kinds of injuries in battle, without ever needing to slow down or stop as she immediately heals. Moreover, this constant regeneration allows her to draw out as much of her superhuman strength as possible. She removes all physical restraints to unleash 100% of her strength, magnified by her perfect chakra control, to unleash more force than what should be humanly possible. This comes at the cost of tearing her muscles and breaking her bones with every single blow, but these wounds are instantly healed before they can debilitate her. On the other hand, one's chakra and lifespan are used up at a far faster rate than merely using creation rebirth, so it helps one fight at their highest, but draws them ever closer to death. Tsunade, however, still wasn't using that final state, as she deemed the situation still not calling for it. "You're from the Uzumaki clan, girl, aren't you? Why are you following this little villain?" Tsunade eventually couldn't hold back her curiosity and asked Karen on the ground. She was greatly attached to her grandmother's clan. Mito raised her after her parents, her grandfather, and her granduncle all passed away. She was most connected to her grandmother while she was young. As Mito outlived all of her other family, she instinctively understood that the red-haired girl she was looking at was from that clan. Not only by her hair, but previously they all sensed her use some kind of big chains. "Don't insult Neji when you Konoha are the biggest villains out there." Karen fearlessly gazed at the giant slug and Tsunade who stood on top of it. The slug was white in color with 3 blue streaks that run vertically down the middle and side of its body from its head, and tapered off at its odd tail. "I think that you're the biggest villains today in the ninja world. You didn't help that same Uzumaki clan, my clan, you mentioned, after everything we did for you in history. You constantly caused trouble everywhere. You even forced the Kusagakure, who was under your control, to fight for your interests. That's how my mother died in the first place. I have only disgust for you all." Karen finished speaking her true feelings. Out of all the big ninja villages, she disliked Konoha today the most, especially after finding out everything about the destruction of her clan through the patriarch. Tsunade suddenly opened her eyes wide in shock after hearing her. She was truly caught off guard by those words. She previously always regarded the Uzumaki clan and Konoha as one in her heart. She truly didn't expect today's Uzumaki survivors to have such a hostile viewpoint against Konoha. She was just a genin when the Uzumaki clan perished. Her sensei also withheld such information from her until much later. She remembered how angry she was at him after learning of it. It was one of the reasons why she left Konoha later, after realizing Konoha's never-ending hypocritical nature. But she wasn't like that anymore. She clenched her white fists while thinking, "Yes, I will make up for all those mistakes of the past. I and Naruto will change the Konoha for the better. In the future, I believe it." Danzo. This reminded her once again what kind of damage Danzo did to their village. Jiraiya, Kakashi, Mikai, and all the summons were also a little surprised while remembering it. Apparently, the knowledge of circumstances regarding Uzumaki's downfall was previously greatly hidden inside the village. Now that they think of it, it was probably artificially made to be like that, Sarutobi-sensei. Jiraiya was however sure that only Hokage's duties made his teacher turn so apathetic like that, and that he wasn't always like it. He still remembered him since his childhood. And not only that, Karen. Not to mention helping others, you all even cruelly massacred the entire clan that founded your village. Not even babies were left. I know everything already. Itachi Uchiha carried orders made by you bastards. Kiyomi's yin powers suddenly increased in the area of her eyes. She was very angry. Kiyomi looked at Tsunade furiously and started cursing before the woman managed to respond to Karen. "This doesn't have to do anything with Neji. Even without him, I vow to destroy your village in such a way that you never recover again." Her eyes were ice cold. "What?" Kakashi suddenly exclaimed out loud after hearing Kiyomi's words from the top of one of Jiraiya's summoned toads. He previously never had any idea about such information. And seeing how Jiraiya and Tsunade displayed shameful looks, it must have been true. "This is crazy." Kakashi clenched his fists. He was always somehow attached to the Uchiha clan ever since Obito gave him that eye. Not to mention that Itachi, the man in question, even used to work on his team in Anbu when he was young. Hell, he even met with Itachi just a few years ago, and he had no idea that he was such a good guy. Exterminating your whole clan on the orders of your village must have been so hard on him. Kakashi now connected the dots and remembered how there was a talk of Uchihas wanting to rebel right before that happened. It seemed to Kakashi that not only Itachi was not a bad guy, but he was a saint. Mikai also furrowed his brows after hearing that, still not talking to Neji below. They were currently engaged in a duel of exchanging strange gazes. They were both silent but firm too. Out of the 4 shinobi on the scene, from Konoha's side, only Tsunade and Jiraiya knew of Itachi's current status as the spy in the Akatsuki, and the tragic backstory of the destruction of the Uchiha clan. Tsunade was informed of that fact only just recently after she became the Hokage by the 2 elders, while Jiraiya knew it a long time ago. Itachi was his secret informant inside of the Akatsuki. But he was always monitored and not given complete information, therefore his help was limited. Tsunade suddenly hissed in anger. She cursed her fate because she became the Hokage right at this moment, when so many ghosts of Konoha's past mistakes began to haunt them all relentlessly. This group is an existential crisis for us. We must end them right here. Nonetheless, now there was no possibility of going back, helping the Uzumaki clan, saving the Uchiha clan, or forcing Hyuga to change their practices. Tsunade finally sighed and gestured everyone, including the group in the air, to begin acting then. Jiraiya also sighed as he now prepared to move on Tsunade's signal. He decided to start teaching Naruto the Sage Mode as soon as possible, from this moment onwards, as there was no more time to waste left in this world. He was too old to grow now in any meaningful way now, however, Naruto was not. He showed them all previously that he could even surpass his father. He was sure that the boy could surpass himself in the Sage Mode too, and learn the super perfect Sage Mode. Users who mastered it perfectly had 0 animal characteristics, outside some light pigmentation near their eyes, and got an even bigger boost in senses, speed, durability, strength, reflexes, stamina, and chakra than imperfect users like Jiraiya. Their techniques get way more powerful too. Neji, I warned you before about descending onto this path of darkness. I said that I would be the first one to deal with you then, didn't I? Might Guy suddenly declared seriously while entering his 7th gate. He finally made some kind of difficult resolution with himself at this moment. It was the hardest decision of his entire life, evidenced by his current change of demeanor. The usually jovial Guy now had a distressed but also resolute face full of intent to kill this past student of his. He was even prepared to open his final gate of death, just now, slowly moving his thumb finger near his heart area. However, Tsunade suddenly stopped and motioned him to hold back and not do it yet. Neji never saw him so cold before, so he was a bit taken aback. But it was also at this moment that he understood the Guy wanted to kill him for the sake of Konoha. After all, he served Konoha all his life, but knew Neji for just a few short years. Neji looked at his body getting filled with blue vapor, and he knew that they broke their relationship to the point of no repair from this day onward. Neji felt only a tinge of regret at the fact. He prepared for it already long ago, it was destined to be. Sigh, but you can't deal with me anymore, Guy-sensei. Not even if you open your final 8 gate. Well, you could try, but then I would have to destroy this entire village behind you are serving. Be certain that these are not empty words. I just want to leave now in peace. There is no point in the entire Konoha getting destroyed. And even if you choose to open it at this time, I would be gone before it takes full effect. Don't die for nothing. Neji evaluated Guy's 8 gate around the middle 6 paths level. He could probably escape it easily in his peak form, but not so easy in this worn out state. But he could certainly destroy Konoha in return with his gold sword if he attempted to use it against him. To hammer that point even further, Neji's right hand suddenly glowed blue in color, and then a small truth-seeking ball appeared. Then he cracked it a little, and a bright sun-like aura already oozed out a little. He didn't have enough energy for his usual scale, but it was still enough. Might Guy was only round a peak cage level in his 7th gate form, while Jiraiya and Tsunade were both late cage in strength. Kakashi was a little mysterious now, but was probably still weaker than them. Neji thought that he just needed to frighten them enough to prevent from Guy going to the 8 gate route and then to escape. And he succeeded. Everyone opened their mouths wide in shock. Neji's seemingly small hand manifested such an endless and seemingly almighty piece of energy. Tsunade, in this hectic situation, decided for gut not to use the 8 gate after all, and just signaled them all to attack. Guy nodded and immediately used his Hirador. Giant toads also moved with their weapons. Kakashi swiftly took out his saber from his back and drew a few arcs in the air, creating multiple waves of purple electricity and chakra, to which Neji opened his eyes a bit. Tongue-tooth sticky acid. Tsunade's summon also launched an attack. Kasai released an acidic paste from its mouth. The acid's concentration and density are great enough to melt stone. Kasai requires no preparation to perform this technique, allowing it to be used instantly, which in turn means that targets have no opportunity to dodge. In addition to that, it was the size of a small egg. 5 release. Toad oil flame bullet. Jiraiya and Gamabunta, he was standing on, started spitting out 2 different substances from their mouths. It was a cooperation in jutsu performed by a toad and a fire user who have achieved mental and physical harmony with each other. The toad uses its large lung capacity to spray toad oil from its mouth at a target. The fire user then ignites the oil, increasing the attack's range and power. Everyone decided to use only long-range attacks on Neji previously, due to the danger of coming close to him because of his superior speed. At this time, those 10 people, from the root, started falling from the sky, while also removing their clothes and making some kinds of seals, their bodies completely marked by some kind of black marks. Even Sai performed his strongest painting jutsu that he recently mastered, Super God imitating drawing. Neji, however, remained unperturbed and calm even when that shower-like wave of attacks came to rain over them. You all forgot the underground, didn't you? And you call yourself the strongest that Konoha has to offer now? Neji just mentioned while picking Karen and Kiyomi by their shoulders and underarms. His whole body already entered his Tensogen chakra mode once again today. Karen blushed in delight, Kiyomi's left eye also started releasing yin energy, and they were gone down below. Once they encountered the part of the barrier underground, Neji simply manifested a small truth-seeking ball, molding it into a drill, and then casually started cutting a part of this barrier, in order for them to escape, and they promptly did. After a few instants, they now fled somewhere miles away from the Konoha, to a new location. To a location where the Hyuga's Tensogen rested. Simultaneously, Naruto was urgently running to the massive barrier a little further after shaking off Yamato, when all of a sudden he noticed another girl, in front of him, speedily running toward the same place while sobbing. She wore a lavender and cream-headed jacket with lavender cuffs over mesh armor. She also wore navy blue pants, and black low-heeled sandals. Hinata, wait. Naruto suddenly exclaimed. Hinata flinched in surprise and spun around while removing her tears a little. Hinata, what are you doing here? Naruto asked a little hesitantly after she stopped. He just saw her cry, and he was aware of what happened to her father already. Not to mention the girl's younger sister previously committed suicide, which was a big event inside the village. He always had good feelings regarding her due to their similar good-natured personalities. So, he was really sad for her. He previously wanted to get closer to the barrier, and see if he could also enter or help in any way. That's why he ran from Yamato. He also knew that both of his teachers, Tsunade and Might Guy, were fighting there. However, he was certain that it wasn't a good thing for Hinata to go there too. Naruto, I'm going to get revenge on him for everything. Hinata declared while her eyes were red from crying, but her face was angry in a way never seen before. Naruto instantly understood that he was talking about that. Naruto sighed inwardly. It was hard to imagine, for someone like him, how could anyone commit such heinous acts, kill his own uncle, and cause his own entire clan to get destroyed. Hinata, I'm afraid that he's still too much for you to handle. You should train harder before attempting to take him down. Naruto's demeanor, due to various reasons, was much more rational than it was in the past. Hinata clenched her fists. Even though Hiashi had forsaken her, given her no attention since childhood, and Hanabi behaved mean to her, she was still sorrowful for their deaths, even for Hiashi's death now despite him being so sadistic and evil recently in her mind. In fact, Hinata lived with Kurenai-sensei already for a very long time, due to her disagreements with her father Hiashi. Lately, he even started tormenting the side branch members, and she couldn't bear to watch that anymore as she couldn't help them. Just now Neji indirectly caused him to even kill them all, while using that secret power of his. She still blamed her father for everything. She even wanted to previously overthrow him with the help of Hokage's faction, and save the side branch members. However, she also blamed Neji. In her mind, Neji caused her father to become like that in the first place by killing the entire main branch, not to mention that, in her mind, not every main branch member was evil and wronged Neji in the past, just like herself, therefore, there was no need for him to erase them all. She hated Neji even more because he was so closely related to her and her father, yet he behaved so cruelly against them. She was not even sure if he would go after her again because she was also technically the main branch member, and now the last living Hyuga. She wanted to take revenge against Neji for a long time now, and she even recently finally mastered a new technique called the Gentle Step Twin Lion Fists, after training in it for a long time. The user changes the shape of the chakra release from both hands into large guardian lion-shaped shrouds. Doing so greatly increases range and destructive power. The lion heads drain the chakra network of those they touch. It is an extremely difficult ability to learn, as the slightest mistake in chakra control will lead to failure, meaning it is a feat requiring the Byakugan and not just an ordinary amount of talent. That technique could also be used in conjunction with the 8 trigrams 64 palms. She changed her personality, not just her strength, as well recently into a more decisive and firm one. She realized that being so naive, gentle, and empathetic was a weakness in this world. She listened to Naruto's words now about her being weak to fight Neji as an even bigger testament to that. Previously, 2.5 years ago, there was no way that Naruto would have said that. He would have encouraged her to fight Neji, just like he did that time during the Chunin exams. She also needed to become more logical as well as courageous in the future, in order to protect her closest people. Even if she could never get revenge against Neji, she just wanted for her and her closest people to live in peace. She doesn't want to lose even them like she lost her whole clan and family. Hinata, don't worry. I will get Neji Hyuga in the future. Naruto's eyes turned serious while looking at Hinata pitifully. He, who was always an orphan, felt really bad for her after she experienced all of that. In his mind, she was just a gentle girl, who didn't deserve any of it, and who now had to bear such heavy, almost impossible burdens. He felt like he should be the one to deal with Neji and give her some closure and justice. Naruto always wanted to protect his close people, and recently on the journey with Jiraiya, he even thought that he should try and bring everlasting peace into this world. After becoming the Hokage and getting recognized by everyone, it was his newfound second goal. Naruto. Seeing Naruto's concerned, warm, and protective gaze, Hinata suddenly felt emotional once again. Her nose turned sour, and she was about to start crying all over. She was, after all, just a teenage girl with tremendous pressure and pain on her shoulders now. That, in addition to her newfound change in personality, which made her a tad bit bolder, also led her to ask the following question in a low tone of voice. Naruto, can I hug you? I feel like it would make me feel better. Yeah, sure. Naruto suddenly stuttered a bit hearing that, and seeing her sobbing and blushing, heartbroken face. He suddenly smelled the girly fragrance and felt something soft entering his arms. His new shinobi uniform suddenly got wet in the front part as well. Naruto also blushed and didn't know what to do, his hands remaining in the air behind her back. It was his most intimate contact with the opposite sex ever. And, in the end, he also hugged her and started speaking some consoling words while she wept. It seemed that Hinata was not the only one who became assertive. However, after a few moments, both of them suddenly blushed hard and turned awkward, once they remembered that there was still that fight, of tremendous scale and importance, happening in front. After a few minutes after Neji's escape, inside the Roots Underground hidden complex, Danzo also got informed of all the happenings there by Sai, who witnessed it firsthand. He suddenly turned enraged. Those damn 10 good-for-nothings. He was truly maddened by their successful escape. Sai already left, therefore Danzo was left alone and could freely let out his anger, and that waste of Itachi, wasn't he supposed to deal with all the survivors on his own? Don't tell me he got a change of heart later, and let some of them go if that is the case. Then I'm sorry that his precious Sasuke isn't here to bear the consequences of his brother's stupid decisions. Danzo then roared. He could pinpoint exactly from which direction did this young female Uchiha jump. In fact, after some time, he was even confident to determine her exact origin through some old records of his on that clan. He was mostly angered because of her today. Judging by her words, she knew the whole truth, and judging by her tone, she would almost certainly go against him in the future. And she was not just an ordinary Uchiha, but she had a Mangekyou Sharingan, almost perfect Susanoo, and time-based abilities which were considered rarest in the entire ninja world today. It was, therefore, perfectly understandable why Danzo became so emotionally driven now despite his stoic and logical nature. Danzo was also alarmed by the sudden reappearance of the so-called Madara Uchiha person in the ninja world, right near the Konoha, and his targeting and defeat at the hands of Neji Hyuga. He also never thought that that person was also a part of the Akatsuki secret organization. Danzo also knew a bit more about Akatsuki than your average person, not only from Itachi, but also due to his involvement in its creation, when he indirectly killed one of its founders, and made that other one, with the Rinnegan, take the organization in another direction. Madara Uchiha was also there during the Uchiha massacre, taking some of their eyes just like himself. His whole arm, full of Sharingan, was in fact obtained at that time. He was also on his mental list of the most dangerous opponents. That supposed alien of the last time Madara Uchiha, Neji Hyuga, those two females, one of which is a life and death feud with me, it keeps getting worse and worse. However, if nothing happens before we finally conquer the Edo Tensei, then with all of those great individuals, I have planned for resurrection and control. I would be stable as a mountain. Danzo also researched about that white-haired individual that took Hiyashi's daughter, and he came to some rather intriguing clues. Danzo and his team also already inferred, in the meanwhile, that Orochimaru's previous use of the Edo Tensei in the village wasn't at its maximum potential. It was, at most, utilized at around 30% of it. Not to mention his sensei's Tobirama oldest one, which could basically just deal with deceased bodies, not their unique chakra abilities. Danzo was preparing for that perfect version, the version that he realized could truly allow him to dominate this world. Therefore, it didn't bother him all that much now that he lost those 10 sacrificial vessels. He was currently only at most 6 months away from that point. After that, it was the moment to move. Lately, in addition to Edo Tensei itself, Danzo also focused on recalling history, in order to get ideas for extremely powerful shinobi that he could resurrect later, in addition to ways in which he could try and obtain their DNA. The only good thing that came out of today was that there is no more Hyuga clan now inside the Konoha, and that there was now more Hiyashi. However, there's still that other daughter of his left. Danzo murmured. He prepared to deal with her as well, as soon as possible, so he could use Shisui's ability freely. Not that he cared anymore. As soon as the research was over, he is going to take Konoha either peacefully or forcefully. At this point in time, he can't waste time on formalities. And that concludes this episode. If you enjoyed it, I'd seriously love it if you leave a like on the video as it helps me with the YouTube algorithm, and it keeps me going, plus it's free. But if you disliked it, smash that dislike button twice to be sure and comment down below the reason why. And as always guys, have a wonderful day. Hunt ahead. Salute.